Hey everyone, welcome to a very special edition of the SuzetteSpeaks show. I have so much to discuss with you today. Last night, late after midnight, I got several text messages, several DMs that let me know that there was something amiss going on here in the United States. Of course, many of you may have heard by now that the Supreme Court, unfortunately, there was a leak. There was a leak of an opinion that should never have become public, but someone who works for the Supreme Court has privileged information, privileged ties to the Supreme Court, unfortunately used that to release a draft opinion that seemingly would reverse Roe versus Wade, which is a U.S. Supreme Court decision made in 1973 that guaranteed a federal right to the termination of pregnancy. However, in this draft opinion, written by Mr. Samuel Alito, one of the United States Supreme Court justices, it seems as if in this draft, 5 justices were comfortable and seemingly approved of his argument as to why Roe versus Wade should be overturned. Now, in recent polling, and on average, about 70%, I've seen polls that say 56 today. I've seen polls as high as 75%. But on average, you'll see a poll number of around 69 to 70% of the United States voters, when polled, when asked, are in support of maintaining a woman's right to choose. And this now leak and breach of confidentiality like never before, like this was major, like I couldn't hardly sleep. This now sets in motion what may be the biggest repeal of established precedent that we've ever seen in the United States. Now, with me tonight, I have none other than a certified mediator, graduate of the John Marshall School of Law. He has his own YouTube channel, and he's going to help me unpack what this means. Unpack what this means for the 100 million women, probably 80 million of childbirth age, how it affects Black women in particular, Black families, the Black community, because that's what he uses his platform to discuss, and I'm glad he's here. And we really need to unpack what are the long-term ramifications of women possibly, and again, it's not the current law of the land, you can still choose a pregnancy termination if you want. This is not the law of the land yet, but it set off many alarm bells to the possibility that there will be no longer a federal right to choose, that this issue will be passed back on to the states, and that each state in the union would be able to create their own right to termination laws, that women would have to go from state to state, possibly, if this draft is the opinion that will be released later this summer. And of course, there are people that are quite excited. There are many people for as well as against this possible ruling. And it has put the woman's right to choose back to the forefront of the discussion in politics in the United States. When polled earlier this year, many Americans placed this at about a 3% importance as far as their current lives. But the statistics don't lie. Estimated 1 in 4 women in her lifetime will need termination services. So everyone knows someone, most likely friends, family members, people that you have come in contact with, have utilized this right. And there are many, though, on the opposite side who are applauding this possible overruling. Again, I'll tell you that it is not the law of the land. It was a leak. Who leaked it? I'd like to know that, because in the history of the Supreme Court, 232 years, never has a full opinion reached the eyes of the United States public prior to it being handed down. It's a big whodunit. I hope this person, me personally, is possibly prosecuted, because it has now brought a cloud over the neutrality of a court. Now, granted, the cases, or the specific Texas case that this purported opinion has been written to address, the hearings were held back in December. And as per U.S. Supreme Court protocol, many drafts are circulated. Oftentimes, drafts are changed. Already, come on, hit the like button. Let me see who's here. Because there are so many parts of this story that need to be unpacked, and I'm so glad I have help to do it tonight. I hope you guys are ready for a great show. Please hit the like button as you come in. I have Savior Black. Y'all go check out his YouTube channel. He's already ready in the back. I see you, sir. But I want to hear what you have to say. We're going to ask him to help us unpack what exactly happened, what this means, and hopefully, where we go from here as a community. That's the real question for me. So as you come in, hit the like button. Our topic for the night is, will the U.S. Supreme Court overturn Roe v. Wade? Now, many of you may not even have heard of Roe versus Wade. I asked in a poll question, but there's so much to talk about here. And I'm grateful that I have also another legal mind coming through. Said yes right away when I invited him on. But I got to say hello to my people first. Shout out to RM. Thank you for being here first. Appreciate you. Yes, Mashawn Denise in the building. Cough, cough, elbow, cough, cough. Girl, people don't like to talk about it. When I was doing research earlier today, I was like, the numbers around the world are astonishing. And that's not from a place of judgment. That's just like the impact, the global impact. People don't really like to talk about that. It makes people very uncomfortable. So we're going to get into it. I ask that if you do come up on the panel, you try to use termination of pregnancy so we don't get demonetized, please, and thank you. Please try to use termination of pregnancy or woman's right to choose. Thank you, moderators. Please ensure that everybody tries to use termination of pregnancy or woman's right to choose in this stream, okay? Let me write it right now in the stream. Termination of pregnancy, if you can remember. All right? If you don't, I won't be mad. But termination of pregnancy is the term we're going to use tonight if you come up on the panel, okay? Or a woman's right to choose, okay? Please bear with me on that. Thank you very much. Let me see who else is here. Miss AKA Lady, thank you. She was one of the people that had me looking at my DM after 12, almost 12 o'clock. My phone was already going off. And I was like, what? I started getting up and reading. Again, another night of not sleeping all the way, but that's okay. This one, I was really fired up this morning. I was like, I must do a show on this. I was afraid to at first because this is such a hot button issue for so many people. It's a personal issue. Many people have faced this type of decision. It's not a joke. There's no one who takes this decision lightly. And I had a conversation with a friend about it. And I was like, well, getting her reaction, I know this is going to be a juicy one. But as I said, I have Savior Black here with me to help me unpack this heavy topic. Again, we're going to be respectful. If you do come up, please and thank you. I know there are many people who have very strong opinions about this. Oh, shout out to DL Saint already. Showing some love, saying salute to the chat. Hey, Sunbreeze, how are you? Again, we're kind of going to hopefully keep this stream monetized and try to use the words termination of pregnancy, right? Or right to choose, women's right to choose, if you can. Please, and thank you. All right. Appreciate you being here, TTOO in the building. Nice to see you. All right. Guess what? It's funny that you mentioned TTOO contraception, because I was reading that half of terminations are medicinal or chemical. Half are through pills. So when we talk about this, that also comes into play. We assume they will remain legal, but over half of terminations are done by what they call chemical, through pills, through medicinal means. So if you say this is like, again, we're going to get into it. Y'all ready? This is heavy today. I'm warning y'all, let's go. 1 in 4, yes, women will utilize her right to choose in her lifetime. That's a lot of people, y'all. Will says, I believe this is another propaganda piece I can't stand. And again, I heard it from my homegirl. I hope she's watching and I still love her. They be breaking bones and they doing, I'm like, maybe back in the day, I'm not going to say it wasn't done back in the day. I was talking to my mom. She was trained as a midwife in Europe. And she told me about some crazy stories. I was asking my dad, I was like, was this in Jamaica when y'all was growing up? And all the people, the older people said, I know people who died. That's the first thing they told me. Oh no, I had this smart girl in my class. My dad was telling me, and she got messed up and went to one of these kook off in the shadows. People like to use the terminology back alleys. Off in the shadows. A lot of women died. If you didn't grow up with that generation, it's been 2 generations now since. So maybe we don't understand the impact of it, right? There are a lot of people who actually died. All right, we're going to get into it. Y'all ready? I see you, A Magnificent. My mother's. I was supposed to have an older sister. I hear you. AKA Ozzy says, Black population gonna come back. Okay. All right. Yes, people are saying there are many. Let's use termination. Thank you. DL on the heavy hitting super chat. What up, my brother? He says, oh, this is texting you that. Yes. DL was one of the Insta DMs that was like, is this real? At like around midnight, I was getting ready to go to bed. I looked at my phone. I'm trying to stop looking at my phone before I go to bed so I can actually sleep. But yes, DL was one. Miss AKA Lady was one. My cousin was one. I had to start reading articles immediately. I was like, is this a hoax? Is this a joke? And it was clear no. It was clear that this draft opinion, now confirmed by the Supreme Court itself, that it is a real draft. Justice John Roberts is or should I say Chief Justice John Roberts is livid that it got out. He has ordered an investigation to see where the leak came from. It has never been done, not to this extent, because they were actually was reading that the original Roe v. Wade was leaked too, not to this extent. But it is a heavy, heavy, heavy blow to the confidence that the court, the United States Supreme Court, remains neutral. It does not have a lawmaking in a sense. It has interpretive power. It's easier when there's statute because they can look at statute clearly. But when it comes to constitutional rights, it's interpreting through the 14th Amendment. Are we getting ready? Are y'all ready? Where are my speakers? Are y'all ready? DL, big up yourself. Thank you so much. Appreciate the love. Ebony in the building. How are you? We were over on Cooking with Maggie the other night together. Well, let me see. I got to really pre-read these Savior Black because I'm used to just popping up the comments. So I'm like, vet the comments. Kennedy Monroe, good to see you. You've been under a rock or what's going on? I've been in Bay Area and we have, yes. The protests have started, as I think what you're referring to. Yeah, they've already put up barricades around the United States Supreme Court. That's happening now. Yeah, that's what I just said. I need to pre-read the comments and I'm just doing them up. But it is a very polarizing. Try to use this term, all right? Termination or pregnancy. If you want to say right to choose, let's try to use those language because YouTube is very sensitive. I do not want to get this video flagged, and I want to hopefully keep it up, right? So we're going to try to use this terminology, termination of pregnancy, please. Or again, if you can, right to choose. Women's right to choose if you can, all right? Or Roe v. Wade, whichever way you want to put it. But it's going to be hard. I know everybody want to stay with it. Yes, TTO, thank you. Needs watches in the building. Thank you. DL Saint so far is the sponsor of the stream so far. Chemo, how are you? Are y'all ready for my guest? Hit the like button first. Y'all get the likes up. I see more people than likes. Get the likes up. Like I said, there was a... let me make it a little bit larger. Supreme Court draft opinion that would overturn Roe v. Wade. It was published by a news outlet called Politico. That's who broke it. Shout out to those good, shoe leather reporters who, I don't know who gave it to them. That's the real question. I don't know who gave it to him. That's the real question. But Savior Black, a YouTuber, mediator, law school grad, is here today to help me. Also, and like I said, YouTuber. He has a fantastic channel, very focused on Black family, Black issues. That's where his heart is, obviously, Savior Black. And he's going to help me unpack. Y'all ready for him? All right. Again, hit the like button, please, so I can bring him up. So, yeah, it was published by Politico. Everybody else picked it up in a stunning breach of Supreme Court confidentiality and secrecy. Politico obtained what it's calling a draft of the majority opinion 5-4, written by Samuel. Y'all know who Samuel Alito is? You're going to know now. Justice Samuel Alito, that would strike down Roe v. Wade. Now, you got to remember, three of these justices were appointed under Trump. Okay, that are voting now. So we got so much to do. I don't want to jump around. Are we ready for our guest? Hit the like button, please. And I will be dropping the link a little bit later, okay? I please and thank you for saying termination of pregnancy, and I please and thank you say a woman's right to choose. If you please can use those. All right, yes. I agree with you, Mandrell. Hey, Suzette. It was just a matter of time before, yes, people have been saying, I think that's what the previous comment meant, where people been climbing buildings, like, what you own? Like, I think that's what it meant. That's how I'm going to take it. It was just a matter of time before it happened. The last 45, 50 years, 73, almost 50 years. The right, meaning the political right, I see you, Mandrell, has been coming after this for years. And here we are. And what it means to our community, we are very affected. The largest population to have, or the most amount of people to have terminations is Black women. Of course, it's going to affect them. It's going to affect people who are disproportionately not able to travel, because 20-something states have laws that already look like they're going to ban it to a very harsh degree. And then 23 or so states look like it's going to remain open. So if you got to deal with this, you're going to have to travel. It's a lot. We got a touchy topic. Yes. Thank you so much, Miss AKA Lady. And thank you for the text, the Insta DM. I saw it, like I said, because of all of you. I had about 5. Probably about 11:30. And then by 12, I was like, okay, I got to read this. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to work out early. I'm going to be so tired. But stuff like this, we are living in history, y'all. We are living in history. Miss AKA Lady, thank you for your generosity. We are living in history. Obviously, every day. But on days like today, we're going to have to remember this to tell our younger people, man. And the world may look extremely different if this becomes, in fact, the opinion issued at the end of the Supreme Court term. Are y'all ready? I got to say hello to a couple more people. Yes, termination of pregnancy will fuel the various transportation companies. I don't know if that means fuel the okay. I see you. Peace to Bernard. Thank you, Andrew. One clarification on that. Yes. I'm not saying that there aren't all races that do, right? There's a way to say it, but meaning the majority of people who get it, but all races utilize this. And many argue that it's not just Black people, but people who cannot travel, because people who have the means will be able to travel regardless. So it's very touchy. It's very, facts and the uncomfortable truth of Bernard. I'm going to bring in my guest. I was waiting for y'all to get the likes up, but I guess y'all don't want to do that. Can y'all hit the like button, please? But without further ado, we have military should I call him military vet? 5 years of military service. He also comes from a background of I think it was tech. I had your bio like open. How about I bring you up and you go introduce yourself? Without further ado, y'all come on and please welcome none other than Savior Black. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you feeling tonight? This is SuzetteSpeaks.
I am fantastic now that you're here. I am grateful that on a last minute, just like y'all text me early in the morning, I thought it was fate. He had sent me an email last night. Hey, I saw you said you wanted to collab. And the rest is history. I was like, yeah, can you talk Roe v. Wade? He's like,
most definitely.
So I'm so grateful you say yes. Your mic is a little hot. It's a little loud. You can turn down the volume just a bit. But thank you guys.
Let me know when it's good. Is it good now?
That's perfect. Perfect. Okay. Perfect.
Outstanding.
Yes. This is what the snowball. Y'all ready for the snowball? Because there are many who see the writing on the wall. If you can overturn 50 years of precedent, after most of them has said in their interview before the Judiciary Committee, just like we saw Ketanji Brown Jackson, we saw Neil Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett all say settled law is settled law when they went in front of the Judiciary Committee. But yet the three of them, all appointed by Trump, all very newly appointed justices, all stand with the majority opinion along with Clarence Thomas and Justice Alito. In this draft opinion, again, it's not law yet. It's a draft leaked opinion. But before we get into it some more, let's let him introduce himself. How are you? So tell me about yourself. And again, grateful that you just reached out. Like, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me on. I very much appreciate it. Again, name's Savior Black. I am a 5-year military vet. Spent time I was an IT project manager for about 10 years. Yeah, approximately 10 years in oil and gas, entrepreneur and YouTuber. Went through law school and quick point of order. But no, the law school I was at was not John Marshall. It was Thurgood Marshall School of Law here in Houston, Texas. It's a HBCU. So I take pride in the Thurgood Marshall School of Law.
Thank you. And I stand corrected. Thurgood Marshall is at Southern?
No, it's at Texas Southern University.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I stand corrected. Yeah. Hey, HBCU, I'm familiar with Texas Southern. When I read your bio, I already thought of John Marshall. That's immediately that came in my mind. So I stand corrected. Yes, proud HBCU grad. So we are going to speak. I guess there are so many different ways. Everybody's saying welcome. Everybody's saying yes. I'm glad he's here. Yes, this is his YouTube name, of course. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, we got it. We got so much to talk about here. Where do you want to begin? So let's start with Ernest. Thank you, Ernest. Let's open up with questions. If you have questions, you can leave them in the chat and I'll kind of help guide the discussion as well. So can you explain what a draft opinion is and who has access to it? Do you want to start there?
Yeah, and it's very interesting because I'm like you. This is unprecedented. There's never been a leak of a draft opinion where in its entirety been leaked the way that this has been done. No, even the one that you're talking about with Roe v. Wade initially, yes. Right. That has about a day or so before, and that was something where somebody it was a clerk who actually leaked that, and they gave them an embargo that they weren't supposed to talk about Roe v. Wade until it was actually the decision was actually read, but the timing kind of they messed up on the timing, but this has never happened. This is never, like you said, the only people.
It's crazy. I'm like, I don't think people understand how breach of protocol is almost like an understatement to say this was a breach of protocol. This was like unfathomable. This is one of our like sacred bodies that yes, it's still run by humans. Y'all hit the like button. Welcome Savior Black as he's here, giving us his time and his expertise. But yeah, as beautiful as our court is and beautifully flawed, because we know there were so many Supreme Court decisions prior to which I say the advancement understanding of humanity of those who look like me and you. They got it wrong several times. Dred Scott, they got it wrong. Plessy v. Ferguson, separate but equal. I know I'm spitting out Supreme Court cases, guys, but they got it wrong. The Supreme Court of the United States made it legal to be segregated and so many other things. So we know it's a fallible body, but it has evolved over time. So for this to have happened in the history of this court, we've never seen anything like this. It always stays in house. They have to pass along drafts. I was reading that there's been as many as 50 drafts, 20 drafts is normal, because they have to say, what do you see? What do you not see? How can I strengthen this? Do you agree with this? Do you agree with that? This is a normal process. For it to even be leaked like this is flabbergasting, is astonishing, is unprecedented. We cannot emphasize that enough. No one ever sees this, right? And somebody wanted us to see it, and wanted to make this a political issue. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I say, and that's for me. That's where I'm looking at. It's like, I don't know who wanted to make it, whether it's the right or the left, or who wanted to make this a political issue, because it's not as if the justices don't put their name to their decisions. Because when you get when that opinion comes out, you get a concurring opinion, you can get a dissenting, well, you get the dissenting opinion on how that's going to work out. But it's not like you're not going to know who voted or who came down on which side when it comes to that opinion. So you can agree in part, you can disagree in part, you can completely have a dissenting opinion. And so concurring in part, dissenting in part, you can do all of those things, but it's not like they're not going to know who it is. So
your name is attached to it. So you ain't hiding. This is not a throw a rock and hide the hand kind of situation. Everyone knows either you agree or you write the dissent, or you vote with the dissent, right? Mm-hmm. So for this to happen, and thank you, Doug, for the super chat. Thank you for your generosity. Doug says this is just a political ploy. The Republicans were projected, to take the House and Congress, meaning in the November election this year, November 2022, we have midterm elections in the United States. So we would be voting on House members, Congressional House, U.S., the people that go up to D.C., the federal House seats, as well as many Senate races here in Florida. The governors, what state are you?
I'm in Texas.
Texas. Okay. Yes. So our governor's race is coming up here in Florida, and many other races. So Doug's opinion is now Democrats have 6 months to run on this case for midterms to hold them some seats. Doug say, I know who leaked it. You talk about right or left. He's like, I know who leaked it. HBCU grad salute. Fantastic. What say you? What do you think? Doug, thank you for your opinion.
I'm like Doug, but it's like in my head, I'll be honest with you, I'm going one way or the other. It's like, did the right leak it early? Also, because they could have leaked it early. Okay, let's see if we can get out ahead of this. We'll give it a lot of runway. Hopefully it'll die down. There'll be something else in the news cycle by the time this comes in. And so you don't just have the 4 months. It's supposed to be released within 2 months. So you got about 4 months before the election cycle. Maybe somebody on the right decided, you know what, maybe let's get some runway on this. Something else will come up that'll be hotter than this if we get it out now, and we can get ahead of it that way. So, because initially I was like, it has to be somebody on the left. Then I was like, oh no, if you want to get out ahead of it, leak it now.
So there is a reason also that we can use, conjecture and say that the right could have let this go. But Doug's opinion is like, nope, it's probably somebody aligned with the left, the Democrats, so that they can run on this and galvanize the base, if you will. Midterms are notoriously unimportant to a lot of Americans. And so maybe this is a time where they have the opportunity to say, pay attention, and therefore keep or win some seats in the U.S. House. So very good point, Doug. Thank you for sharing. Is this true? John Marshall and Thurgood Marshall are both on his resume. Did I get that right or wrong?
It should just be Thurgood Marshall. John.
You know what?
This is somebody who knows me very well, and he's talking about John Marshall because that was a high school that I went to back.
I was like, did I read that?
John Marshall is on my resume, and so is Thurgood Marshall. So this
I love it. So why get into YouTube for someone like yourself who's a mediator? Why get into YouTube?
Well, it's something that when I was talking with another YouTuber, TLA, that was something that got me thinking about the YouTube side of it as well. So that was what kind of sparked me. Okay, well, I do have some information I could share. There's a lot of things that I do know that I could definitely do that. So YouTube was the direction after talking to TLA where I
He
decided.
got you in the game, huh? I love it. Me too. I looked up to him. I still do. I find that there's so much information that he's been so selfless in offering many of us who are just struggling to be, 500, 1,000 in the space while he's blowing up. But you know what? I really do thank him for his knowledge and passing it forward.
Yeah.
Thank you. Danny says the Supreme Court got something wrong in America. No way. I love it so much. Yikes. Texas and Florida. Yes, we got a lot to probably talk about with our recent laws, even to ban a woman's right to choose past a certain amount of weeks. We have now dropped it in Florida from 24, I think, to now 15, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it was modeled after a Texas law, if I'm not mistaken, Savior Black. Yeah, Mr. Young says not likely leaked by the right, in my opinion. Y'all hit the like button as you come in. I see more people have joined. Again, this is SuzetteSpeaks show with special guest YouTuber Savior Black. Please go check out his channel and subscribe. He is here to help us unpack the recent draft opinion that was leaked. Go ahead, sir.
I was going to ask you a question. So I know how Texas has it. So Texas has what we call a trigger law. So that if Roe v. Wade gets overturned in a couple months, it's going to trigger that automatically in Texas, abortion is going to be illegal. Is that the same in Florida as well?
I do not believe so. I do not know if this new bill that was just signed by our governor put that in place. But prior to it, I don't believe so. But yes, there are a lot of states around the country where if this precedent were to fall, and I'm going to ask you to explain what Roe v. Wade is, because I think we're going to assume, or maybe it's not good to assume, that a lot of people know what we're talking about. So if we could get back to the basics as to what it was and what it allowed under federal law so that people can understand. But yes, there are a lot of states around the country, either that have trigger laws that say if Roe v. Wade does fall, if it is overturned and removes the federal right to a woman's right to choose, that automatically it's going to be blocked in several states. Or you have certain states that don't have any laws that have been made since it, and they have many arcane laws that criminalized termination of pregnancy, that people can go to jail for very long periods of time because those laws were never, ever touched, never updated, never enforced because of Roe v. Wade, but they're sitting there. So if there are going to be certain legislatures in different states that have to address that right away, or it's going to trigger like some very arcane laws that have been around that kind of been asleep, if you will, on the books because of Roe v. Wade, and it will turn up a whole bunch of people's lives upside down. So before we get into it very deeply, let's go ahead and define our terms and tell us what the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Roe v. Wade is, what it means.
So there's two cases that this decision or this opinion actually is going to touch on. If this is the actual opinion,
Casey versus Planned Parenthood. Okay, yep. Do your thing, sir.
Roe v. Wade, and you have Casey versus Planned Parenthood. So those are two cases. And Roe v. Wade was the initial case that came out of the Supreme Court that authorized or said it was going to be okay to have what's the termination of pregnancy. I have to make sure I got that term right. I didn't want to use the other term to say that it was okay for a termination of pregnancy, that legitimized it, made it so that it was no longer illegal. Casey versus Planned Parenthood was a secondary case that came out that relied a lot on Roe v. Wade, but that also started to introduce certain terms such as dealing with the trimesters or viability of pregnancy as to when you could have a termination of pregnancy or not have a termination of pregnancy. So both of those cases were very integral in introducing that. And with Roe v. Wade, and introduced from a legal standpoint, there were several issues that it talked about, because it talked about privacy, and it alluded to it from the first, the fifth, and there was a couple other amendments that it did for privacy. And then it also said that a woman had a right to a termination of pregnancy, also based off of the in the 14th Amendment, there is a clause, and I'm trying to remember the Equal Protections Clause. My brain started to fry for a moment, based on the Equal Protection Clause in the 14th Amendment. And so this opinion actually attacks both Roe v. Wade, and it attacks Casey versus Planned Parenthood for both of those issues. is the way that Alito he framed it. So it's attacking both of those. So you don't if this is the actual opinion, and I keep on saying if, because the Supreme Court has acknowledged that this
Draft.
is the
It's
draft.
only a draft. This is not the law of the land. This was not handed down by the Supreme Court officially. No, this is a draft. Absolutely.
And we and in the back room, a lot of times they have a lot of political wrangling between each other on trying to. I had one of my professors in law school. She talked about that process extensively, about how in the back room they're constantly trying to convince the other person to come on, hey, get on my concurrent opinion, or if you're not okay with the majority of it, get on my, we'll have a plurality, or I say, or no, you should do the dissent, and they're constantly doing this. So the draft might be, like I said, it's an actual draft, but there might be a lot of changes between the draft that we're seeing and what actually comes out and what's actually good law at that point.
Absolutely. I'm gonna break down a little bit what you said a little bit more. So you have 9 Supreme Court justices, right? So we have an odd number, and we have now a majority that are conservative, but they're supposed to, in theory, keep an open mind so that they can convince one another of, their point of view, their opinion, sway them, open their eyes to, different ways of looking at an issue. So the draft opinions are normal. They're supposed to say, okay, this is where we are today, but that's why they write it over several months, because the more information, more you think about it, more, different things that you look at can sway your opinion. It's supposed to be able to.
Mm-hmm.
So even though they have 5 justices of the 9, all conservative, or Justice Alito, Justice Clarence Thomas, I want to say Neil Gorsuch, that one always trips me up. Amy Coney Barrett, and was it Brett Kavanaugh?
Oh.
Those 5 are the more conservative justices in terms of their politics. So people are very alarmed that it seems as if they were predisposed to possibly ruling in this manner. And then based on what the opinion says, this draft opinion is over 100 pages long, y'all. I was reading bits and pieces. I have not read it in its entirety. Let's just say in full disclosure. Have you read it?
I spent I read the entire opinion. I stopped once because there's 2 appendixes at the end. Because when he writes the opinion, he relies heavily on saying that certain states initially in Roe, they said that, many states at the time when the 14th Amendment was drafted, were okay with the termination of pregnancy. And his last 2, the appendices, what is
Appendices.
So about 63 pages in, you'll get at the end of it, and then the remainder of it, of the 95 pages, is just going to be the appendices, just going through with the law of the land, each state at the time, the ones that were in favor and the ones that weren't. For him to he was just solidifying the point, because there's even a point like you talked about in that opinion where it addressed Black people to an extent, but he talked about the termination of pregnancy laws and everything else, and then the Starry Decisis, which I'll be honest with you, I know that a lot of people are really big fans of. We got to keep this because it's precedent, but
it's overturned all the time.
Yeah, I say so.
It's Starry Decisis till it's not. Let's break down some of these legal terms for everybody. I want to make sure everybody's rocking with us. First of all, thank you, First Gen Corporate, for this generous super chat, saying, watch those public dollars now. Your taxpayer money, he's saying, go to private religious schools with dubious curriculum. Resegregation once more. Affirmative action, colleges will look like University of California, and consumer protections gutted. Y'all, this is what many people, and this is skipping ahead a little bit in the conversation. What does it mean for future? If you can, as a Supreme Court, if we can witness, and again, this is a draft, this is not the law in many states, as it was prior to today, termination of pregnancy rights are still in full effect. You can get a termination if that's what you need, right? As far as your healthcare. And I was listening to, I know y'all be mad, I've been listening while I'm working to The View, and I listened to Whoopi give an impassioned speech. I was like, I don't want to get copyright strike to play it. But it was very, very moving in terms of like this religious argument. I'm glad you brought that up, First Gen Corp. That is a religious argument.
And it's going to be interesting once they do that as well, because he, in the opinion at the end, he said that this only applies to termination of pregnancy, the other term, but he said only applies to that. However, you can see as he was writing, and a lot of the other points that he touched on, saying that everybody's scared that it's going to hit this, and it's going to hit this, and it's going to hit this.
Same-sex marriage, next.
That has a, and it's funny because
that's not in the Constitution. Marriage is not even mentioned in the U.S. Constitution.
He referenced same-sex marriage, but unlike the other times when he was talking about the other cases where the Supreme Court decisions were overturned, and he named what the case was and the decision that it overturned, so that you has a, and which were a lot of good things that we still consider good law, like your Miranda rights, cats, and talking about surveillance. He referenced Plessy versus Ferguson. That was one of the ones he put. The
Civil Rights Act.
Correct.
What will stop them from saying this Voting Rights Act was not law and was not the intent of and was not therefore written into and should never have been written into the Constitution? What would stop that?
Yeah, it's funny because when he talks about it and he talks about those other things that are not as favorable, he just references the court case, the Supreme Court case, and he doesn't provide any ancillary information or any additional information to tell you the case was about. So so then I have to start looking up with some of those cases. I was like, oh, same-sex marriage. This is, when you start referencing, I'm like, yeah, because it's like,
yeah. I haven't read the entire thing. I was gonna do it this weekend. I'm impressed that you were actually mediating and reading this. That's what mediation said. I ain't had time for that today. I was looking. I was like, oh, this is 100 pages. Okay, let me skim through some of it. But shout out to our guests for being able to go through again those 63 pages and then plus the appendix. So First Gen Court, I think this is a very interesting opinion that you share with us, because no matter who you are, I think this religious overlay that the United States, by many, that wants to push this idea that the United States in its founding was a traditionally Judeo-Christian, or like I said, Christian Protestant, Judeo-Christian Protestant based country, that the founding fathers were in fact men of faith, that the Constitution was divinely inspired, and therefore, did you see this in the opinion? I was reading about it in other synopses of the opinion that said it had a moralistic tone in terms of right versus wrong. Is that what you read when you read the actual draft opinion?
He alluded to that's what it was, that it did have a moralistic tone, but he was more referencing the history of where a lot of these laws came from, and he was talking more to whether or not these laws were in concurrence with the 14th Amendment, as was alleged in the first case in Roe v. Wade,
right,
as opposed to what came, because he said Casey left that stuff out because Casey knew that was it was shaky grounds to stand on. But that was where he started talking about it was kind of a moralistic, and this is what the court had deemed before, because of Constitution and what the legislatures had done, and if we're gonna stand on the legs of the law, so he did go into it somewhat, but didn't.
So let me ask you this, because I'm gonna break it down a little bit. Yeah. So when I say moralistic, guys, when I say it in terms of like taking out what should I say, objective reasoning when it comes to legal precedent, and replacing it with this should never should have happened because the standards, culturally speaking, in the United States at the time did not prescribe for this type of behavior. Am I reading it right as far as what you read as far as Justice Alito's draft opinion?
Yeah, because on page 39 he actually gives a 5-factor test for overturning or looking at law that has previously been established, and whether or not it should be overturned or not. And
what's the 5 bases?
The 5 bases was the nature of the error, the quality of the reasoning, the workability of the rules imposed on the country, the disruptive nature on other areas of law, and the absence of concrete reliance were the 5 elements that he provided at that time. And that's
absence of concrete reliance.
Yeah, it has a, so let's see. Did I put a page on where concrete reliance was?
No, we're getting into a law school class. I don't wanna get too deep, 'cause I'm like, so what this what a lot of cases do, and what a lot of opinions do when they go to the Supreme Court, guys, is that the justices are allowed to create a set of rules, what they would call like a rubric for reasoning out similar cases in the future. So
Correct.
they try to break down the application. Why did I decide this opinion like this? Rule number one, I said, if this is this, then it's that. Like, for example, when it comes to what's another word I can use for explicit pictures and things like this. The legalization of the First Amendment to put out whatever pictures and nudity that you want to. They have a whole rubric as to why this falls within the First Amendment. So when you get new cases, hopefully, because of precedent, those same rubric, that same kind of rule of law is applied to the next case, right? So we've been saying a word that has been brought up a couple times in this discussion called Starry Decisis. It's a Latin word. However, in legal terms, can you just break it down for us, Saber Black? What does that mean, and why it's important in this discussion? What does Starry Decisis mean?
It basically means what you were talking about earlier with we've already made a decision on this, and because we made a decision, we're not going to revisit it again. That's
Yes.
the law. We're not if that's what we decided, or that's what the previous courts have decided, that the Supreme Court's decided that they weren't, then that's the law, and we're not touching it. And Scalia used to be big on always like trying to talk about, well, stare decisis. That's why we can't change things. And there's
So I'll just add a quick definition: legal principle of determining points in litigation according to precedent. Legal principle of determining points in litigation according to precedent. So we don't start over every case and say, okay, I felt like this. No, we're trusting the judgment of those within limits who have gone before, and set the standard for what it is under each amendment, right? That was added to the Constitution that we're saying. So because there was no marriage written in the Constitution, it was what they call substantive due process, or implied. Where would this fit? Is this a right to health care? Is this a right to bear arms? Is this a right to freedom of speech, right? Or freedom of the press? What does this fit under? Because remember, our forefathers, when they wrote this Constitution, as beautiful as it is, and as amazing as it is that it has stood the test of time up till now, is they couldn't have imagined the right to bear arms would allow you to bear, a weapon that could let out 1,000 bullets in 10 seconds. They didn't know that when they said, okay, everyone has the right to bear arms. They had a musket. They were putting a bullet one by one into a gun and loading it, setting it on fire, and pow, one shot. That's why people are saying we have to now apply present day circumstances to what has been a beautifully written document. Now, this is why we also hear in this discussion strict construction.
yeah.
Strict construction versus what many would call justices who believe that the Constitution is a living document, right? So strict construction is a legal theory held by many conservatives that let me put this up. I'm sorry, this is not meant to be any legal advice. We getting into law school, y'all. This is not. Hold on, let me say. I forgot. If you have a legal issue you would like to review, please contact an attorney. Neither of us are here to give you free legal advice tonight, nor is this platform designed for that. That's not what we're here doing. This is for informational and entertainment purposes only. So if you have a legal issue, speak directly to an attorney. Discretion is advised. We are here having a discussion. Let me first, because I'm getting into some of these legal topics. We want to educate you on what they mean, guys. So we have a set of justices that have different ways of viewing their role and the role of our Constitution. Some believe the Constitution should only be interpreted the way the founders who wrote it intended, right? But as I said to you, Black people weren't even considered full human beings at that time. We were 3/5, according to the beautiful, still in the document, Constitution, right? So how are we going to interpret that? Okay, but y'all strict constructionists. Okay, fine. So you're going to look at it as what the founders intended as it was originally written and apply it to today. This is one legal theory. purported to be the standard by many more conservative justices and judges. You have another set whose legal philosophy says the Constitution is a moldable and evolving document that must be interpreted for modern day times, modern day issues, things that did not even exist when it was written. So let's get into it, Savior Black, in terms of what you read in the opinion. Is it giving us strict construction?
Oh, very much so. There's a
And
lot.
how so? Explain that for us.
So they're looking at it from the perspective of how was it intended at the time when it was written.
Roe v. Wade in 1973, what it was intended when it was written. Is that what you mean?
Not necessarily Roe v. Wade. They're looking at the Constitution and how.
Okay, so that's okay.
Specifically with the 14th Amendment is what he starts with, because he's saying that Roe v. Wade is, and more so with Casey, but between the two of them, that they're leaning on the 14th Amendment, and that their interpretation of the 14th Amendment is wrong. And when we start talking about the Starry Decisis on why they should change it, he really goes in on it on page 35. So it starts at point, it's point number 3, and he goes in on why they need to change it, because their interpretation was wrong, and he's constructing it is a very strict, very literal construction on what the 14th Amendment was stating and what the law of the land was at the time, what they were stating, and why in what the reasoning is on why they should overturn that based off of they got a wrong. And he really went in on them, saying that, oh no, that the previous court, they were just wrong. It's not even. Oh man, it wasn't even. It's not even nice the way, like, traditionally. And TLA, he kind of hinted at it, and when I read it, I was like, oh my god. He talked about it from a political standpoint, but when I actually read the opinion, I'm like, he went in on them like they really had no idea of what it was that they were getting into.
Prior Supreme Court that approved Roe v. Wade that's what I'm hearing. Everybody's saying it never should have passed it. That's what his basic argument is. So give us an idea of how he's applying the 14th Amendment and why it does not apply. What's his main argument as to why the 14th Amendment does not apply?
So when he started talking, he talked about several reasons on why the 14th Amendment didn't apply, and he even started off way back on page 13 of the opinion, because one of the things he talked about was that people say, well, you have a right to certain things, and there is that clause that's in there, the equal protection clause gives you the right that if you feel that way that you can do certain things, and you say, yeah, no, strictly constructed, it's going to be within reason that it has to be that way. And he said that you can have a right to, because he goes into talking about at the time, if a doctor, and he uses old terminology because he's talking about old cases with the quickening of the child. But specifically, he was talking about, like, well, if you want to commit suicide or have assisted suicide.
Self-delete. Yes, sorry.
I apologize.
It's okay. Like the TLA in the meantime. What up, TLA in the building? We were just talking about you.
Yeah, let me change. Let me come in here. I'm gonna write that down so I don't sit there and mess that word up again.
That's okay. Let me do a quick reset since I broke up your chain of thought. Shout out to everybody watching. We were just having an open discussion. We're going to drop the link shortly here. I have a very special guest, Savior Black. Also went to law school. He read the entire opinion, is giving us the real deal interpretation of what he saw in this draft opinion. We want to emphasize this is not the law of the land yet, but many really believe that Roe v. Wade is done. It's done out here. It's never happening, or it's going to be reversed, right? Overturned is another way to put it. So with those things in mind, you have a set of people very excited. You have a set of people panicked, upset, right? There are many people who are curious as to who leaked this document. Unprecedented that somebody would leak this, right? Bringing a cloud of uncertainty, right? Removing the trust, the objectivity that usually we attribute to the Supreme Court. We're saying, wait a minute, these are all the conservative justices. Surprise? No. Were they planning to do this? Did they lie during their hearing to be approved and appointed to the Supreme Court when they were in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, just like we saw Ketanji Brown Jackson? Were they lying then and said they believed in stare decisis? They believed in settled law. That means legal decisions before shape the legal decision. You follow it now based on what was in precedent before. But all of a sudden they came through, and it's like wiping away nearly 50 years of protection at the federal level for a woman's right to choose. So it is a groundbreaking, earth-shattering. I cannot express to you how, first of all, crazy it was that somebody leaked this. That is crazy. And I hope they do get to the bottom of it. And I hope they do find the person. But not only that, what it says has such a deep impact on any woman's life, men and women's lives going forward, and what this country looks like. So as you were saying, sir, I was trying to get to the bottom of why Justice Alito, who was the Supreme Court justice that wrote the majority of the opinion, excuse me, and the majority of it, I'm sure, and why he was saying the prior decision made in Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court at that time in 1973 leaned into the 14th Amendment, but was incorrect. I wanted to know what you gathered in terms of why he said the 14th Amendment. What does the 14th Amendment, for those who may not know, guarantee?
Oh my goodness! Now I have to go back to because
no, I'm gonna get. Let me get my Google up because right now I'm putting you on the spot.
I say 13th always comes easy for me.
Yes.
4th is the one that's the longer.
Second.
13th comes easy because that just deals with voting rights. The 14th there's so many different clauses at the 14th because the 14th is what you use in order to cement the rights of the 5th Amendment from the federal to the state.
Put this up on the screen. I'm gonna read it real quick. All persons. This is now sections, different sections. There are multiple sections to this. I can't read this all. All right. We're gonna let you do a quick summary of it, and you guys can dig deeper. We're not gonna put you in law school right now. 20 minutes to explain every application. But before we drop the link, we just want to make sure we are opening it up with some good foundational knowledge as to what happened and what this draft version really means. But go ahead, Savior Black.
Yeah, so what he really leaned into on it was the equal protections clause, because that's what Roe v. Wade and what Casey had leaned in on when they made that decision, or they came out with that opinion at the time. So when that was a good law at the time, they looked at it and they were like, okay, if that's what you're leaning on, we got to knock that leg out. Right. And so that's essentially what it said, was like the equal protections clause and the way that it was interpreted from Casey and Roe v. Wade, that it's an equal protection for them. And it applies also as he didn't even really go, well, he touched it initially when he started with the privacy portion of it. But then once he got down to it, he was like, the equal protection does not apply the way that it was
written in the original opinion.
And he called it, I'm trying to remember the terminology. Did I write that down? Because he essentially said they created law out of whole cloth from the Supreme Court. In other words, the Supreme Court took it out of the legislature's hands. He said, because what they did was supposed to be what the legislature does. That the Supreme Court did with Roe v. Wade, they made law the way that the legislature, the Article 1 body, the Congress, and he said they made law the way that they do it. He says, and that was not supposed to. And he went through and he outlined point by point how it is that they did that, and why it is the Supreme Court does not do that, and how the Supreme Court is supposed to interpret law, and how that was supposed to come up under with the 14th Amendment and everything. But
instead of interpretation, they made law. His basic argument. I hope y'all following. We're trying to give you a synopsis of a 100-page draft opinion. Thank you, Thane Mithra. Nice to see you. LMAO. People are acting as if Republicans have not been game planning this for like 20 years. Yes, good to see you, Thane. Now, wait a minute. Who's a lawyer up here? We got several in the building. I love it. Oh, my goodness. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming over, showing some love on the super chat. Gave me the googly eyes like, we're going in or what's going on over here? I don't know. I hope it's the positive one. But so grateful for your generosity. Thank you so much. And just dropping in. Thank you very much for being a part of the stream today. We're going to drop the link momentarily here, guys. I want to bring up, and I appreciate you doing the heavy lifting, Savior Black. on some of the legal issues, because I think sometimes, again, no one's going to really sit down except you and read the full.
I love
no layperson. No, I probably eventually will, but no layperson is going to really sit down and read the full extent. But the reaction was swift. There were people who were quite, in the streets already. As I stated earlier, 1 in 4 women during her lifetime will seek termination of pregnancy service for whatever reason, right? So that's a lot of people. For those of us who are under, I would say, whatever age from 1973, we don't know a world. 2 generations don't know a world of what it was like when people try to do this to themselves. And that was very common, y'all. As I was speaking to some of my elders prior to the show, they were very, very upset because they were like, I know several women who died, several girls that died growing up in high school and beyond. So this is a part of, for some, a long time coming, a plan to kind of return to what was, and they think of it as being better. Others say this is going to return people to what they say is a back alley with, you'll see people protest with hangers and all kinds of stuff. There are people who want to talk about the economic implications. There are people that want to talk about the healthcare implications, right? Is this a matter of a healthcare? Is it Congresswoman Jayapal? I forget her first name. Gave a speech during Congress about her having to have a termination. And it was very impassioned. And she's just like, it was between me, my husband, my doctor. For people who believe in freedom, as she may argue, I'm paraphrasing. Why is it that a girl in Texas is free to tell you she can't wear a mask, but if something happens to her and she's abused or something happens to her, she has to have a baby because the state told her to, is telling her to? There is a kind of imbalance here that many would argue doesn't sit well. Doesn't sit well for some. Others are applauding it. Right? So depending on where you come down on this issue, this is something that, again, can be very triggering. So again, when you come up on the panel, please use termination of pregnancy. Please use the words the right to choose. Please try your best. This is the gentleman that we've been talking about, Samuel Alito. You can look him up, right? He's the one that wrote the majority opinion. I'm going to try to make us smaller and this a little bit bigger. Right. He was born in 1950, nominated by President George W. Bush. He is the second Italian American to sit on the Supreme Court. And the 11th, we've had so many Roman Catholics on the Supreme Court. Like, I don't know what it is, but we got a lot of Catholics.
Only
not
one
really Protestants.
Yeah.
They don't really. Why do you think that is, Xavier Black?
I don't know. I was juxtaposing it to the fact that you don't have a whole lot of Roman Catholics. There's only been one that we know of that has been president, but in the Supreme Court, they've literally
there's like all Catholics on the Supreme Court.
It's like we don't have any representation in the branch of the government on the Article 3 on that third one. Oh, you guys have
you guys have all of it. All my Catholic brothers and sisters, you're well represented on the Supreme Court. Maybe not as president, as you stated. Only John F. Kennedy and Joe Biden. That's it.
That's it.
2 Catholics ever elected to president, but they are strong in terms of representation on the Supreme Court. So Justice Alito is the person that wrote it. I'm gonna drop the link. I wanted to, like I said, get through some heavy lifting before we go. Again, thank you, Thane, for that generous super chat. Appreciate that so much. I'm gonna read some more comments. I'm gonna drop the link. Yes, he said he got the whole thing. I'm not a lawyer, says Mashonda Niche. I don't play one on YouTube. I hear you. I know. Andrew says our forefathers were deists, and he tries to break it down here. Deism is a philosophical belief in human reason as a reliable way of solving social. They were both. I would say deists believe in supreme being who created the earth to operate souls by natural laws, philosophical, reliable on solving and social. Okay, interesting. I never knew this. Thank you. I was thinking either or, but you're saying a supreme being as well. So, okay, thank you. Educating me today, Andrew. Thank you. I appreciate it. Let's see what other comments we have. Yes, assault weapons should be legal. Hello. We're not saying it should be completely illegal, but you don't need no assault weapon to go hunt no deer, bruh. Like I see some things and I'm like, I don't know. Folks want a literal interpretation, but with exemptions. Interesting. It's a living document. JBR is saying no. JBR, we wasn't even a part of the Constitution fully. I wonder what you mean by that. Explain that to me, please. What you mean? A living okay, I don't want to assume what you mean. Are you saying it's living but it ain't for everybody? I'm not sure how to interpret what you're saying there. But drop a comment. We're going to drop a link. We're going to encourage people. Do you want to make any more reflections based on what you read and what you think this might mean for the Black community?
Yeah, so one of the things I was going to talk about specifically was when you read it in law school, you probably heard the term outcome determinate judgment.
Mm-hmm.
Where they already have their mindset before they even made, and you can, when you're reading the opinion, or at least when I was reading the opinion, you can definitely see that this is something he's been cooking for a long, long time.
He was ready for it, huh? So
it was like
he knew the outcome, and so he was going to create the reasoning to get to the outcome, basically. Interesting. Did you feel like it was personal? I heard that used a couple times to describe the type of opinion it was. Did you feel like it was emotional or personal?
Somewhat. I don't know if I want to say personal, but it was very snippy towards the previous court, as in like he was like, he used the word egregiously wrong. I mean, he didn't say like, oh, it kind of, they kind of messed this up. He was like, no, these guys were completely off. I don't know where they came up with it, and then they said that they screwed it up again on Casey, and then they screwed it up again.
So he's like, if I was a judge back then, none of this would ever happen. Interesting.
And you, like I say, and when you look at that whole list that he had, it, like I say, they mentioned it was 2 pages, and when I looked at it, it wasn't just 2 pages of footnotes. He started off with like, initially you had Plessy versus Ferguson, and he started going with those, and he went with 3 initial cases, and then it was just it was like 2.5 pages of footnotes, and it was just, I'm like, man, how long have you been working on this? You've been planning for
He was working it during the summer break. He was working it during the fall break. He was writing and looking and see. Ariston Sparta, thank you for joining us. This is the discussion about the draft. This is not the law of the land, guys. I want to make sure to answer your question. No, it was not reversed. If this is an indication of what the Supreme Court is planning to rule, then it may be reversed in just a few months. This should have never been leaked. This looks like it was written in about February from the sources, Politico, the news outlet that broke the story and had the source, the insider, who gave up this confidential, never should have been in the public's eye draft. Maybe we can, I think there's a lot of conjecture as to why, who, what, when, where, why this person let this leak. Some people, Doug has mentioned, it's a midterm year. Maybe the Democrats was like, hey, we need some fire in the belly from our voters. Let's put this out there. Or I like your point, Saver Black. Maybe it was our conservative brothers and sisters that said, you know what, this gonna light up a whole fire. Let's bring it out now. So by the end of November or during the beginning of November with the elections, it will already have gone out. That's another way of looking at it. So I think either side, if you want to call it sides, as the way we have it in U.S. politics, which is kind of annoying, has a reason or could have plausible reason as to why they would want to let this opinion, leak.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot more to discuss. So no, Ariston, no, it's not reversed yet. Right? It is something, and I do have, and I've seen Michelle Obama and President Obama, they made a statement. I'll wait till, so I'm gonna allow you, please, other reflections, and we're gonna drop the link now. Go ahead, sir. Do you have anything else you want to add? I'm gonna drop the link, invite you guys to come up. Please use the terms right to choose, women's right to choose. Please use termination of pregnancy. Here's the link. Please be respectful, depending on where you stand on this issue. It can be very emotional, especially those of us who know people who have had to have this for all kinds of reasons. I had, again, some very colorful conversations today with friends, family, folks who just, are into politics, who told me why they believe what they believe, right? And it can be very, very, impassioned as far as their response, depending on where they fall. So please go to Savior Black in the meantime. Come on up, y'all, if y'all want to join the yes. Queen Regina says, hey, Queen, says this is not a hotbox issue for some generation, the young generation, right? So I had a friend and colleague call me up, then y'all need to stop doing what y'all do to get babies. That was the whole conversation. I was like, I think we're oversimplifying this in a sense. Not saying you, Queen, I'm just saying what the context of the conversation I had earlier. I was like, homegirl, there are lots of people. This is not an easy by any means. Like, if you know someone who is an OBGYN, if you know someone who has actually participated in this is not like, daisies and that kind of thing when people are making this type of decision, especially if it's health related and life of the mother, especially if it has to do with, hey, First Gen Corp, I see in the back, especially if it's, as a result of abuse, like inter-family abuse or grape, whatever, it can be very traumatizing, like super trauma. But there are people, that think no matter who you are, and even not in the life of the mother, not to save the life of the mother, not to, deal with abuse, that there should be no exception at all. Right. So, we're not talking. And then there's, as you said, Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which created parameters around trimesters. That's when we started talking about, well, do we believe it should be in the first trimester? Should we believe it in the second trimester? And that's why, you started getting like these terms like partial birth termination and things like that, meaning later term. But I think it's been settled, or was, before we started getting a wave of state laws in the last couple of years. Now, people will say, go back to when President Obama had in his last year a Supreme Court pick that the Republican senators blocked. So basically, instead of 3 years in office, you could have said Obama had, instead of 4, he had 3. Because during his last year, they filibustered and blocked his last, what should have been his Supreme Court pick until it went over to the term of Mr. Trump. Then that ended up having an effect that Mr. Trump had 3 picks to the Supreme Court who are now voting, or according to the draft, leaning possibly towards voting in a majority stance with what this opinion said, which would be to reverse. So all of these elections filling the federal bench, Mr. Trump made it one of his primary goals, federal level, get them seats filled. Because at each level, you pick for the next level. So if you're in the U.S. trial court, the bottom court, that's where you pick from to get on the U.S. appellate court. And from that, just like we saw with Ketanji Brown Jackson, go back and watch that show I did. And that's how you get on the U.S. Supreme Court. So you try to fill the vacancies for lifetime appointments. Y'all ready? Lifetime appointments, they stay there. Go ahead, Savior Black.
I was going to say that when you start talking about the trimester thing, it brought to mind that around page 42, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it's around page 42, he actually begins to attack that on the from the opposite viewpoint of what you pointed out a moment ago, that because of Casey, and he said Roe had it completely wrong, so Casey came in and they changed up the trimester thing for Casey, and they put in something in Casey for trimesters that he felt, and again, this goes to that outcome determinant judgment, that he felt that was just completely wrong, in that it disadvantaged women at different levels. So at what point was the child considered viable? And I got to go back and figure out what has it was, but it starts around page. Yeah, as I told. So he's like, so if you're in one state or in some place that he said that if you're someplace that has really good medical care, then your viability is going to be earlier than a woman who is in a place that doesn't have good medical care. So her case for viability in the trimester and when that starts goes back later. And he says that make it, he's saying that he starts to talk about, does that make any sense from that perspective, that you have some women are going to be disadvantaged when you take that viewpoint of it. And as that was going into his 5-factor test when he was started talking about one of those factors. And it was interesting to me when he started talking about, I'm like, man, you've really been thinking about this for some time. In order
digging in. It was like, when I get the chance, I'm going to make sure I have all of the precedent to back my decision or the majority's decision to overturn. So right now, Queen, we've been talking about if it goes back to state laws. So if again, it is the law of the land as of today, if it's overturned, it will go back to the states, and each individual state, their legislatures there, will determine what and when and how, if they allow it, how it will be applied, a woman's right to choose. And therefore, some of what we become accustomed to, which I said earlier, as of now, 50% of terminations are chemical, are done by medicine. Now, whether or not state legislatures will now rewrite that becomes a question. So right now we do, but this could actually be a longer term question. Yes, Queen Regina adds, Ruth Bader Ginsburg should have retired instead of. Oh Lord, we can't go back. Yay. Miss AKA Lady adds, I'm very concerned about the younger kids who just aren't ready. The conversations with our kids needs to be more direct, as the consequences of their actions will be major. Very good point. Were you gonna add something? Let me bring up First Gen. He's been waiting. Hey.
Hi, hello. Can everyone hear me?
How are you?
I'm all right. Yourself?
I am happy to see you. I'm glad you're here. I know you want to chime in on this subject, so go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Sure. Hi, Saver Black. Hi, SuzetteSpeaks. Thanks for allowing me to be on the platform this evening, Suzette.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by even the draft. I'm a student of history, so I studied some legal history when I was an undergrad, and just knowing how the Supreme Court operates, and knowing how certain people play by certain rules, aka Mitch McConnell, they've been biding their time for about 40 years now, since the Reagan era, to really methodically assign certain characteristics on the courts. And you've seen that during the Trump administration proliferated. I mean, it was crazy the amount of judges that Trump appointed within 4 years.
Yes.
That ABA didn't even qualify them. ABA had concerns about them.
The American Bar Association did not think many of the Trump appointed judges were even qualified, but go ahead. Just making sure everybody understands what you're saying.
Yes. But even amidst all that, it was still, shoveled in great numbers. And it was extremely young, very young. We're not talking about, for the audience to paint the picture, we're not talking about 40, 50, or 6-year-olds. We're talking about people in their 30s, right? Getting these lifetime
federal lifetime judgeships.
Exactly. Just to make this clear, I'm all for a woman's right of choice. And the way I see how the Supreme Court is operating, or how certain characters are operating in this country, it's going to be interesting. You're going to have, essentially, in my opinion, you're going to have like two United States. You're going to have one where it's like the Wild Wild West, anything goes. And then you're going to have the utopian where everyone, equal opportunity, equality, the best of their vision. And I think it's messy when you allow states to legislate certain matters. Like, in my opinion, I don't think the federal government should be as big. I think it should be shrunk somewhat. But there's some issues that the federal government should have supremacy over. And I think this is one of the issues, the women's rights to choose. That's one of the issues where it should be unambiguous. It should be very clear. Leave it the way it is now, in my opinion. When you carve it up and let the states dictate, knowing how each state's histories can switch, like Democrat states can be Republican states can be Democrats. You're just playing a big game of hot potato. So even if the states were to allow a women's rights to choose, what's stopping a future governor from going in there, to say, AKA Virginia, and invalidating what the previous administration has done? I mean, it's kind of crazy, but
yeah, there's no precedent. It's like a hot potato. Like whoever is in and where the wind's blowing in that state. For example, Texas, you have a lot of people coming from up north, from Cali, from all over, now turning major cities in Texas more liberal leaning, a la Houston, that used to be a bastion of, as you were describing, First Gen Corp. More conservative values. So you got all these transplants coming up there for good jobs and I don't know if it still is, cheap housing, you tell me, save your black. And it's changing the politics where a Beto O'Rourke could possibly, win governor, was very close in the Senate race. So you have what was considered a super red state, George W. Bush's backyard. All of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, the population has changed. And here we go. So will the laws be kind of like a pendulum? Who's in power gets the fix, quote unquote. Who's got back in power gets the fix. And you don't know where you live. Like you don't know. There's no universal standard, I guess, is where a better way of saying it. So yes, I think my dad always says, yo, this is gonna set us up for another Civil War. My dad is big on that. He's like, you have two very distinctive and, polarizing when it comes to culture war, camps. So we not seeing each other just as American, kind of like right before the Civil War when we saw each other as I'm a Georgian, or we haven't gotten to that point yet, or I'm a Virginian, or I'm, that's what people thought of themselves. They were like, why is New York telling me what to do? New York be New York, Philly be Philly. This is not how we didn't see each other as this, one body. And I think this is allowing that recreation of like the United States of Texas or United States of whatever to, to change the mentality of our federacy, quite frankly. But yes, great points, First Gen. Do you want to respond, Savior Black?
Yeah, I just want to agree with him on a couple of points, because when he talked about the Trump appointed judges, what a lot of people don't realize when it comes to and what Mitch McConnell did, he really stacked it, because everybody always thinks, oh, the president appoints the Supreme Court. No, the president appoints all federal judges across the board. So when Trump so Mitch McConnell, when Obama, they did their best to slow roll and block as many of his federal judge appointments as possible. And once Trump got in, it was green. It was like a third base coach, just waving everybody in, everybody come on in. And they were trying to and they stacked it to the best of their ability at that time. And like you said, it was funny. Again, I'm nerdy, watching some of the appointment. And one of the judges that he had that was there for the appointment, one of my classmates even pointed out, she's seen it. She said, have you guys seen this? He was not versed on civil procedure at all.
I saw it. I saw that. He was sitting in front of Congress and had not even tried a case. Never been in like a litigation. Had never, ever gone to court. And he was ready to sit on a bench. I don't know. What? I saw that hearing.
Yeah.
Boy had no clue. He had never taken a case to trial. He's never litigated. And they was ready to put him on. Did he get a confirmation?
Right, he didn't get confirmation, but that was one of the appointments that he had made. They didn't have to go through the confirmation portion, but the time that he decided, okay, well, this is a guy we're going to appoint, and and what people don't realize, again, they don't realize that when you have the president, he's appointing, he's not just appointing just the Supreme Court, he's appointing every single one of them.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, when you talk about in Alito's opinion, he also addressed what you talked about with the states' rights, because that was at the crux of at the very point of what he was trying to say is he wants to get it out of the Supreme Court and out of the federal and put it right back with the states. And it's going to flop, like what you said, because I've been here in Texas long enough that I remember back when Texas was a Democratic state, when Ann Richardson was the governor.
Oh, yes.
And over time, once Bush came in, and you had Bush and the Republicans because Texas has pretty much always been a one-party state. But it's one of those situations where you watch it from the time that I've been here. I've watched it go from Democrat to Republican. And now what you mentioned, Suzette, that with the influx of everybody coming in, it might switch it might swing back to Democrat at some point
Yeah,
here.
it's definitely purple. It's not as red as what they thought it was. But yes, like First Gen Corp says, now we have kind of like a patchwork. That's why we have a Supreme Court. Like all of these people are gonna have you go across the state line. Most people are gonna have to drive because you're gonna have to find a state. They're sharing stories like this already, where people are like, "I'm a single mom. I have 2 kids already. Unexpected pregnancy. Blah blah blah." And now I have to drive to New Mexico, I have to drive to Cali, or I have to drive to wherever from some of these states that are already putting it on lock. This is like, I just think of just the seismic shift. I'm not saying that the reasoning or the opinion is crazy. I'm just saying the seismic shift in precedent is really what bothers me. It really bothers me. What say you first, Jen?
Yeah, so for the Supreme Court, it's not the first time the Supreme Court, reversed decisions. I think it was mentioned before, Pleggy versus Ferguson, even like a Dred Scott case. So
Yeah.
seemingly settled law within the Supreme Court can be reversed under certain circumstances. And it just happened to be one of the circumstances where, I guess, settled laws will be reversed.
Yeah, I know it has happened before, but I feel like there was a lot more, I don't want to say justification of equal protection and other things.
Even that phrase you used was that, right?
Yeah.
Equal protection. When that was created, certain individuals weren't even pictured under equal protection.
So do we have to go back and we're going to be discounted? No, I was thinking about that. I was like, what stops them now from looking at same-sex marriage, from looking at civil rights legislation? Like I don't want to be alarmist or anything like this. I have not, again, read the opinion in its entirety. But what stops them from looking at other things that are, quote, created by the Supreme Court?
Nothing. He said in the opinion, this case as his opinion, or the one this draft opinion, he said this only applies to termination of pregnancy is the only thing that this applies to.
That's what he say.
He also explicitly stated that stare decisis no longer, they don't want to be held to stare decisis. So if you have other cases that come up that deals with those things, and again he pointed out, literally he had 2.5, 3 pages of cases where the Supreme Court has been overridden or has overridden itself in the past. And he pointed to, so it's not unprecedented. It's not something that hasn't happened before. It's something that we've done. And here's like 2.5 pages of times that we've done it. And here's five reasons on when these are reasons on why we would do it again in the future. And you can take those 5 things, and now every circuit court, when a case comes up, now they have a rubric. They have 5 things from the Supreme Court. So whether it's same-sex marriage or anything else, they can now say, okay, let's apply
the 5-point test.
Correct. To whatever's coming up. So now you have as if this stands, if this first that was done way back in February 10th, if this stands and this is substantial on what actually is there, then now there's a 5 points test that every time you get ready to take a case into court or take that case up to the appellate level, that you can have a 5-point test that you can say, these are reasons why why this should be overturned. And and if you overturn it here, it can still go to Supreme Court. And we have a 5-point test that's been established by the Supreme Court on how it is we can overturn same-sex marriage.
This is like a roll of the dice, man. So you don't have no idea, depending on who's sitting on that bench, what they're gonna do. How can we maintain law and order if it can be arbitrary?
There's one case that I think can possibly be overturned, and that's Brown versus Board of Education.
I think that's the next one. I'm telling you, civil rights. Go ahead first.
Yeah.
Jen.
So I study Brown versus Board of Education. Obviously, I'm not an attorney like you guys, but
no, go ahead, sir.
So even separate but equal, what can happen and has been happening for the last 20 years is the rise of charter schools all across the nation. So you have state legislators who deliberately starve public funding for education after the Great Recession. They use this under false pretenses to create these privately funded charter schools. Now these privately funded charter schools need funding. So guess what? Someone like a Betsy DeVos, right, there in Michigan, was championing the state legislators and governor to allow public funding to go to these dubious charter schools. Charter schools do not follow the same curriculum. Charter schools teaches alternative history. So now what can happen, and oftentimes this is under false pretenses, if you go back all the way to why segregation happened in the first place, because white people didn't want their children to attend schools with black people. So what's going to happen now is that in an urban environment, as they try to integrate some of these public magnet high schools, what can happen would be a great white flight again. These students will now go to these quote unquote charter schools far, far away.
Right.
And they'll keep the black students into the public magnet schools, starve the school of funding, take that funding that was given to the magnet, go over to the charter schools and replenish their coffers. So, I mean, it's very interesting how Brown versus Board of Education can be overturned one day.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead. Save your black. I know this is getting into your expertise.
The only reason I wanted to touch, because there was something that was interesting to me in how he phrased a portion of it. I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna read just a section. He said from on page 36. He said, because he was talking about when we should overturn some of these things. He said, in addition, when one of our constitutional decisions goes astray, he's talking about when the court has a constitutional decision and it goes astray. They said the country is usually stuck with a bad decision unless we correct our own mistake. He says our erroneous constitutional decision can be fixed by amending the Constitution, but our Constitution is notoriously hard to amend. Therefore, in appropriate circumstances, we must be willing to reconsider and, if necessary, overrule constitutional decisions. And then he goes into the first thing that he mentions, which I find this is when you talking about Brown possibly being overturned. This was one of the things I thought about, because the first instance of an error that was corrected is Brown versus Board of Education, because it says some of the most important constitutional decisions have overruled prior precedents. We mentioned three. In Brown versus Board of Education, the court repudiated the separate but equal doctrine, which had allowed states to maintain racially segregated schools and other facilities. In doing so, the court overruled the infamous decision in Plessy versus Ferguson, along with 6 other Supreme Court precedents that had applied the separate but equal rule. And it's interesting to me because on some of the other language that has it on the subsequent pages, he kind of mentioned it, but he used adjectives that made you think, okay, well, these were bad decisions. Here, it was just a very objective statement that he made about it, and he didn't say it like, oh, well, this was a good time for us to do it. Other times he mentions, well, these were good times and good law, and when we did it. Here he didn't state that at all, and that was something that was very telling to me. And it's the first thing he mentioned, and it was very objective in which I might be reading more into that than probably to be there. But then subsequently seeing him, use adjectives to say, well, and I say that it was good that they overturned some, but this was one that he didn't even say it was good or anything. It was just very objective.
Lord of mercy. You didn't miss nothing. You catching exactly what he did. Because this man sounded like he was very methodical, very planned and pointed in terms of what he put in there and what he left out. Yeah. And if he mentioned Brown and didn't say
good or bad,
which was a great overturning of the precedent before. Whoa. And he mentioned in specific others that they were great, that it had been overturned, but didn't specify with Brown.
No.
Ain't no oversight, bro. Ain't no oversight. No, I gotta read this. I'm really taken aback. But First Gen Corp definitely makes some good points there when it comes to education being the next frontier, because many would argue, and hey, Miss Creative, nice to see you. Glad you were here. Hey, Mona D, great that you join us. Ace Beat says, according to Mr. Alito's reasoning, wouldn't this cause the cases decided by the Supreme Court he is complaining about to be reconsidered? Then it would be pointless. You could get a depending on the day of the week, a different opinion. There is no rhyme or reason. I can come up with a 5-point test and say, nope, this one needs to go back. And then again, this one needs to go back. Like, this is very, very troubling to me, although not unheard of. It can happen, obviously. We just talked about certain cases in our American jurisprudence where it has. Brown v. Board of Education overturned. And First Gen, you probably, again, have done much more study about it when it comes to separate but equal. When the United States had legalized segregation, where for over 100 plus years, white students, black students, churches, every public place was so-called separate but equal, right? And it was overturned. So the fact that this opinion might mention that and not also, qualify that it wasn't good, didn't put that in there, happened to leave it out. It's bothersome. DL, I see you in the back. Thank you for coming up. If you want to come up and join the conversation, please do. Appreciate the gentleman here. Yes, Savior Black does have a passion for law, for sure, for sure. Mr. Brooks, thank you for the super chat. Mr. Brooks adds, this is Republicans' last go round that they see for the future. So I guess, so get ready for a lot more, especially if they win the presidency. A lot more social cuts. Thank you for your opinion. Thank you, Mr. Brooks, for showing some love to the stream, and appreciate again your generosity. Let me read it again. This is Republicans' last go round that they see for a future. So get ready for a lot more, especially if they win the presidency. A lot more social cuts. Okay, so yes, by design, I do believe this is not a today thing. This has been worked on in terms of filling the federal bench. That's why it matters who is president. That's why it matters you vote for the senators who sit on, or not only the Judiciary Committee, but senators vote on judges, right? So how they lean and if their philosophy differs from yours, it matters because they filled up all the federal benches with very conservative people, some less or not even, some would argue qualified at all, less qualified than some. And these are the people who have a lifetime appointment and good benefits, making laws and making decisions that affect people's lives intimately. And then they get appointed and then they matriculate, they get, lifted to the next highest bench and lifted to the next highest bench. It matters, guys. Elections matter, and people who we hopefully will align with and then don't turn around and do something else. That's a whole nother story. But DL, how you doing? Good afternoon or good evening. How are
good,
you?
y'all? How y'all feeling? I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Happy you are here. I know you did. Did you do a stream on this earlier?
I did. I had to get it done before you because I was gonna be here. I got to make sure I get this done. And shout out to everybody who came.
Of course. Shout out to DL Saint. I was probably just getting home at that moment, getting ready. But I'm so happy you're here. Shout out to DL Saint. Y'all, let me put his name up. Thank you again, Mr. Brooks, for your love. Hit the like button, everybody who's watching. We're having a great conversation about the possibility of the U.S. Supreme Court overturning the precedent. I guess I can use that term loosely. The super precedent, as some of these very same judges during their hearings called it, the super precedent, meaning that it should not be touched. But here we are, yet and still discussing what was a draft. It is not the law of the land. It was not handed down or passed, right? It was not issued. Cool. It was a draft written in February based on a Texas case that was held and heard before the Supreme Court in December, right? So as we stated before, many times there are several drafts going between all the Supreme Court justices, the 9 colleagues, discussing the issues, writing, rewriting, all that type. Drafting is normal when it comes to legal opinions. But the fact that it was leaked was unheard of. And then it now brings this kind of question of, it brings the Supreme Court justices process into question, or justices. I don't know. Yes, go ahead, Savior Black.
As you keep on dogging my state out, I gotta mention this. It's not Texas that the case was. It was the Mississippi case. It wasn't
a Mississippi case. I keep saying a Texas case. It wasn't a Texas case.
Yeah, it's based off the Mississippi Gestational Act, and it was.
Please correct me. Just y'all go ahead and drop it in the chat next.
I got. We do a lot of things wrong over here, but
that's why I'm thinking Texas above all. No, because I was going over some of the cases before, so I apologize. So Mississippi was the case that was at the U.S. Supremes.
Yeah, apparently it passed the state level, and then it's been held up legally, and that's how it got where it is now. And it's basically, this is what Politico was reporting. It's not like I'm like you guys. You guys are the experts.
No, that's a normal procedure. Go ahead, Dio.
And they were saying that it basically banned the option after 15 weeks. And that's and because I guess under Roe it's 21 or 23 weeks if I'm not mistaken. So, and it's been held up with motions and whatnot, and that's how it landed at Supreme Court. So it was it was
And
Mississippi.
I'll add on to that. Thank you guys. I was saying the wrong state. Thank you for correcting me. So Mississippi case, my apologies. But yes, once things are appealed, so Save Your Black, go ahead. Yes,
and they kind of shot themselves in the foot when they did it, because Roe was not really even on the table, but because with the state, or with Dobbs and them, went against that the gestational act, they said that for them to uphold Mississippi's gestational act, that means that they would have to overturn Roe versus Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. So they looked at it like, okay, I guess this is our cue.
No, sorry, Miss AKA say Mississippi, Alabama. No, I shouldn't do that. That was a genuine mistake. Just Texas top of mind. No, we're not gonna put everybody in the same category. But my mistake, Mississippi law. Thank you guys for.
But I think what Brother First Gen was saying,
yes,
is what people really should be thinking about, and like and just like the brother just said, I'm sorry I don't see your name on the screen, but our guest, yes, Save Your Black. They're going in there saying, well, this is a long shot, right? You go back maybe, I don't know, handful of years. Oh, this is a long shot. And then the political landscape changes. Now it's like, oh, this might happen. Then it changes some more. Yo, we got them, right? All this is planned out. And it's like what First Gen was saying about the schools and everything else.
Yeah.
Like people, this is what I was saying on my platform. This is what I say to strangers in the street. This is not about the MAGA folks and the Black Lives Matter folks fighting it out. That's all smoke and mirrors. That's all smoke and mirrors. This is about complete control. This is about people executing the plan and planning that thing out. Sometimes generations. Like dad is handing it off to the child. It's a generational thing. They know what they're doing. Don't fall for the smoke and mirrors.
Who wants complete control? Tell me who you mean.
The 1%. Who doesn't want it? We're look at what's going on with America. Look at the decimation of the middle class. It doesn't exist anymore, pretty much, right? And that gap between the have and have-nots are growing more and more and more. There's a guy out there. His name is Andrew Tate. Shout out to him. He's on the other side, our side of the internet. He's like, it's about the have-nots and the have-yachts. That's how extreme it's getting. It's not haves and have-nots anymore. It ain't enough to have. It's the have-nots and the have-yachts. And everybody's down here, smoke and mirrors fighting. It was a brother in the chat who was talking about Civil War. I think maybe Suzette, you might have touched on that too.
Yeah.
That ain't gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. America's too soft. There's not enough people who know what war is to do that. Like do you know anybody who's willing to walk out and pop their neighbor in the face? You know what I'm saying? With their pistol? You know anybody willing to do that? I do. We serve together. It ain't a lot of them.
I know every day. Not right? Every day person.
So no. I would say, look at what's going on with finance, deregulation of finances. Like I'm an older guy. I remember the 70s and 80s, right? What was it then? It was the oil thing. It was oil embargo. Gas got out of control. What happened? Deregulation. What happened? The big corporations started shutting down, laying people off. Inflation. Does all that sound familiar? This is a plan by the have-yachts to consolidate and keep their power. I ain't mad at them. I'm just trying to get on the team. And I suggest everybody out here who watching this, get on the team. You're talking about a law that it's not like it's been wiped out. You're talking about flyover country, y'all. If you're a female and you're in flyover country and you want to exercise that option, you go to California or you go to somewhere where you can see water and it's gonna be legal there. Right? It's only state. It's not as if it's like, nah, we're gonna wipe the whole thing out. And then on a separate note, not to make people mad, but I ain't gonna lie to you, if it were the law of the land that you could not do this, and I believe in a woman's right to choose. I believe in that. But let's say that the law was wiped out completely, federal, state level, you couldn't go nowhere, then I would stop crying about child support, because now we're in the same boat, because I can't choose. Right? They're not, I don't see no signs out there for us. You dig? So it's not a big fight. We can't choose. So I just want to throw that out there. It's all smoke and mirrors. Y'all need to pay attention to who y'all elect to office, because the 1% don't control your vote yet. They'll buy it if they could. And they are buying these politicians, the left and the right. Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, AOC, the crazy new Republicans that come in there. You know what I mean? Like whatever their names are.
That one was I forget his name. I know exactly what you're talking about.
The one out of Florida. I mean, here's the thing. Whoever they are, They all dance for the same masters. All of them. They all get their money from the same place. Citizens United, unlimited money for candidates. And I just want to throw that out there. What's y'all take on that, brothers?
Who wants to respond?
I guess I'll go, because it's like I'm listening to what you were dealing, or listening to what you're talking about, and that it's pretty much one side versus the other on the have-nots and the have-yots. I love that terminology. I'm going to steal that. I'm just letting you know.
Andrew Tate. Shout out to Andrew Tate. He's a 4-time kickboxing world champion. So shoot him out when you use it. But looking at that dichotomy between the two, it's interesting, because as all these laws are coming down, like you said, it's a plan that's been concocted, and they've just been patient. Like I said, Mitch McConnell in stockpiling the votes for, or the seat for the judges, he made sure that he stockpiled them. And it wasn't like, oh, well, we have the people, we can put in them now. It's like, okay, we'll just wait. We'll just make sure that we're going to slow roll all of Obama's nominations. We're going to sit there and wait till he's out. And if we get in, then we'll have all of these. And if not, we'll slow roll it again. And we'll sit there. We'll filibuster if we need to. We'll keep everything holding back. And at the time, they had the majority, so they didn't even need to filibuster. It's like, we just won't put them up on as a for vote. It's a long going plan, and it's something that
there were people saying one group paying checks, there's the other one definitely playing Candyland. I think, did I just see it? No, I saw that on. What did I just see that? I saw that on. Anybody watch Ozarks? I love that show. Oh my gosh, you guys not know what Ozarks is? Okay, anyway.
Yeah, I do watch. I haven't caught up on it yet, though.
Oh my gosh, I might do Saturday show just on this season. I was enraptured with the last six season 4 that they released back to back all day.
That's funny. And Suzette, I wanted to say something to Ace real quick. She was talking about guys' responsibility when it comes to like child support or whatever. Yo, Ace, all I'm saying is this: I'm okay with it, but here's the deal: most men can't even get a court order for paternity, let alone have a choice. I mean, just think about that. People are really up in arms right now about an option. It is one of many options that's being taken away in a handful of states, and people are about to go crazy, right? Because half of the population is losing an option, while the other half of the population is like, well, it'd be nice to have an option.
Well, that's a whole different. I don't disagree, but I hear where you're coming from. Let me see. I don't want to pivot yet. Miss AKA Lady Odds. Something so important cannot be considered a distraction. This deserves full attention. We seriously have to adjust. So I think, this is like every day. People, like they say, people can't get appointments. Like, this is not like casual, but it's utilized. Like, I don't think people realize how much people actually utilize this service if you're looking at it from a healthcare standpoint. A lot of people would say, that is it might be argued, because I heard it in my conversations earlier today. Well, that's why they need to stop doing what they're doing and all these type of things. But do you guys think that victimizes poor people or victimizes people without which I say access to resources, education, and otherwise? Or is it easy to vilify folks who may not have the means? Because if you don't grow up with a good parental structure, the likelihood is that you probably will have early sexual relationships. Let's just call it what it is. Or that you might be in situations where you're not protected or around people you're not supposed to be around. I can think of 1,000 different scenarios where the lesser your resources, the more likelihood you are to run into problems.
Suzette,
go ahead.
I'll go on a deep end here, right? I study this extensively.
Please.
So hear me out.
I'm
going in another direction. Go ahead.
Essentially, right? We have all these prisons in these rural areas where that's their only economy. If you take away the option from a group of people who overwhelmingly uses a service for prevention, right? Then more likely those people who grow up in those environments, they're going to stay stuck in those environments. Those convictions are going to hit. Those prisons are going to fill up, and some people are going to get extremely wealthy.
I think that there's always that with but people with less resources, people who at the bottom of the ladder, you know what I mean, the bottom of the have-nots, they're always going to suffer the most. Not with, I mean, and here's the thing with Miss AK Lady, my people, shout out to you. I'm not saying let's disregard it. I'm not saying let's not pay attention to it. I'm not saying that let's not work to figure out what we need to do. What I'm saying is we are not in a position where we can just say, oh, we're going to focus all of our attention on this one thing. We need to focus on everything, because here's the thing. Who is hurting because the interest rates are climbing, getting close to 10% right now? Is that hurting the people who have yachts? Not even a little bit. Do you care if you're looking at a $15 million house that the interest rate went up 5, 10, 15, 20 points? No, you don't care.
You've been refinanced at the 2 at the 1%.
Right.
So you're paying to sell so you can get some of the other people money, and it come back to the game when it's right. Yeah, right.
It always disproportionately hurts the have-nots. Yeah. So yes, Suzette, I agree with you. This is definitely difficult, right? But let's look at how we got here. There's people who woke up today like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. I'm like, how did you not see this coming? That was 2016 with Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland, by the way, was the Republican pick.
Was
Obama?
He?
Yes, Obama went with him because the Republicans wanted him the prior administration. Think about that.
That's the Supreme Court justice that Obama didn't get to pick in his 4th year. That they blocked, the Senate blocked from having a vote on the floor for like 9 months. And then Trump, when he came into office, got to pick that open seat. Still burns me to this day.
Right.
Still
Obama chose the Republican pick. Think about that for a woman. Don't be mad at it. Think about what happened. Obama went with the guy that he knew would get through without a problem. He knew, like, this is kind of short. Let me get and they blocked it. All right. And then you look at that like, well, that was stupid. They were being racist. They were being this, that, and the third. No, they were playing their game, the long game. They all read Machiavelli's The Prince. They understand what's going on. Who is it? Susan Collins walking around now? Oh my goodness, when we had the meetings, they said they wouldn't do this. I don't understand what happened. You've been a politician most of your adult life and you telling me that's the first time you've been lied to? Man, stop it.
I want to jump in on the.
Go ahead, Savior Black. Don't hate the players. Hate the game.
Hate the game.
I guess I'm just going to go round robin on each of the points, or one of the points that each of you guys made. So one of the things you talked about, Suzette, was the fact that when you grow up and you don't have father to step there and help you out, I think that that's a huge issue within our community. And this is we already see that as being a problem, but one of the stats that's out there is that if you do have fathers in the home, it does help to prevent, and that's a statistic that you can look up. It's on NIH.gov on their website. They have it, as well as there's several other places where you can find it. But there's a statistic that shows that if fathers are not in the home and you don't have that stable 2-parent household, that you're more likely to have that those unplanned pregnancies and those things like that at a younger age, and that it disproportionately affects those children that are growing up without fathers in the home. And when you start talking about the prison and the populations, I think that also goes towards the issues that need to get addressed for the community with the prison populations, based off the fact that a lot of them are privatized prisons, and that the states, in having these privatized prisons, there is a quota that needs to be filled with, that they need to have at least 80 to 90% of those beds occupied, which means that regardless of why they need to arrest people or make sure that people are in those things, they're going to do it, and disproportionately is going to be us they're doing. And they have it so that there's no fathers that are there, the education is lacking. There's a lot of things that are there that helps to push that forward. This is just one of those things that we're looking at as helping to push that forward. And a lot of it is that we know, because we're paying almost like $40,000 a year per prisoner that's there in the prisons. And it's interesting that we know that what people need in order to make sure that they're secure. And DL saying that, as I see, you got the airborne behind you. So you're military, I'm assuming, correct?
All the way. Yes, I am.
Okay. So were you married when you were in the military?
I'm sorry. Did you say married?
Yeah.
That's the wrong one. That's not no wife. That's the wrong.
I was married in the military. And one of the things that was interesting to me is that they knew that when you're getting ready to go and deploy, if your mind is not focused on what's going on at home, so they make sure that your family has medical taken care of. They make sure that you don't have to worry about your checks coming in on a regular basis for them. You don't have to worry about a roof over your head because you got military housing. And if not, you're going to have your BAH that's going to take care of them. And we know all of these things that's going to help to make them secure. And instead of putting that money on the front end and just making sure that the families are okay, we put the money on the back end in the prisons and make sure that like you said, the have yachts have money in their pockets for housing these prisons, for making sure that the families don't have, that our families don't have fathers in the homes to make sure that we can continue that cycle, that we have a level of ignorance. And then by the time you catch on, it's too late. I say you're already down. I say we're down the road, and we're talking about preventative measures, or not preventative measures, but treatment, as opposed to dealing with the actual
recidivism programs. And now we gotta expunge records, and we're gonna make sure they're okay now. As I was saying, I forget which program, my friend who has a nice, just smart, very mannerable, handsome high school boy could not find one positive program to put him in. Like, only if you had some kind of, and I hate the word juvenile record, juvenile delinquent, I guess that's the legal term for it anyway. But, could she find a program that he could go into? Nothing with positivity and just a good role model, just to hang out with boys his age and learn, the masculinity and the secrets of manhood. No. Like, there was nothing. The only place that she really ended up finding was like a football team. He ended up trying out and made it, thank God. And then in her church somewhat, but not like a formalized group. So we were just thinking, dang, if the kid is good, you don't have resources. If the kid is bad, you have plenty after the fact.
I think our community bears the brunt of that responsibility, because it's not that we allowed our communities to get decimated, but we all knows what's going on, and we're all waiting. And I say, just, general terms, it seems like we're waiting for people to come in and fix these problems for us. The fact that, there's no place to take a smart, good young man so he could be amongst good men. That's on us. That's like an easy fix. We should be talking to, there are good men on this panel, there are good men in this chat. I mean, how hard would it be to start some organizations, even if it's just flag football, even if it's just a barbecue, where we're going to come in here and there's no alcohol, there are no drugs. You know what I mean?
Well,
and I'm not saying
that to be fathers to multiple people. That's what really what's going to take.
We have to accept what's going on. I'm always talking about being unplugged and seeing things for what they really are. We have to accept what's going on and begin a process to fix our situation. And people are just leaving the hood. I mean, I did it. It gets to a point where it's just too dangerous. I don't want to put my life on the line and say, like, you know what, man, I'm done dodging bullets. I'm out of here. I live in the best neighborhoods, right? I go to the nice places. Jealous
of me. You watching me get waiting out. Okay, I got to move. This ain't even happening.
I got to move. Yeah. I want to help, but I mean, we need to help each other first, but we're blaming, we're blaming the right. We're blaming all these other people. You know what I mean? I'm not blaming the 1%. Like I said, I'm trying to get my seat. I'm trying to get jumped in. I want them to beat me up with $100 bills, get me into that clique. You know what I mean? I want my yacht. Everyone should think like that. How can we level up? We need to level up, people.
But listen where I'm going with this, because we're still people are being placed in that underclass. Because what happens when termination of pregnancy is illegal in your state? Who is over policed anyway? Who gonna be arrested for this? Not just men. This is gonna be a women's issue, where a lot of our young women may end up in the legal system. And the cycle, therefore, is perpetuated. So it's not an easy fix to me to look the other way or to say we got to do better. Yes, we do. But if we know that a lot of Black women do utilize this, 1 in every 4 American women is going to utilize this during her lifetime. But we know who's going to get policed. We know who's going to be looked at and who's going to be regulated the most conservatively. I think that, again, I don't know, you have to push back before it gets into law. If that outcome is one we want to avoid. That's what I think about it. Go ahead, save your block.
No, I agree with you. I say, because I guess I'm a quote. There's a hip hop artist. He has his name Jazz Bay, but he speaks called Mos Def, and he has this lyric, and one of his songs is Mr. I'm not going to use the word on your stream, but Mr. N-word, and it's where he says they say they want you successful, but then they make it stressful. You start keeping up the pace. They start changing up the tempo. So now we know, and I'm saying that to basically say that, okay, we've been doing it a certain way, and now we see exactly what they're doing. So yeah, not saying don't go chase the bag and go do those things, but how do we reach back to the community and say, okay, we see these are the things that are happening. We know that this is going to affect the next generation. This is affecting the younger generation. And when I was growing up, it was interesting, even when you had the hard heads and those people who were doing bad. I grew up in California. You might be getting ready to go someplace and they look at you like, hey, no, you're a bookworm, dude. I say, go walk down the other block. Because they it's like, what you doing over here? No, you can't be over here. But looking out for people within the community now is not something that happens. Even at that low of a level, and before then, it was even more where someone would see you doing something wrong, and within our community, we would go and we make that correction. Then you take it to your parents, and then your parents make that correction.
Right.
Now we're just going, you know what? It's bad. Let me get out. I've done it so I can't sit there and just point the finger and say that I live out in the burbs. But going back and saying, okay, well, what kind of programs can we put in place within our communities? Because we recognize what the issue is. They changed up the pace on us. How do we go back and how do we put those programs in place? There's no more boys and girls clubs within the community, right? There's not a place for you to go that you can have an extracurricular activity outside of possibly just hey, like you said, the football team or something along those lines. Right. Put you in go entertain us. And I was getting ready. I apologize.
Yes, Negro.
Right.
Right.
Go jump for us, tap for us, do whatever. As they sing, get it on microphone, do whatever. How do we go back and we say, okay, that's not the only way that you can sit there. You can make it. There's other ways on how you can make it. There's other ways that others have made it out. Let me help you and let me show you along the way. Let me show you that. And that's one of the things that for me, I want to get and it sounds like you're kind of on the same train, DL. Is like if it's, I guess, trying to figure out how we can do it. If there's little things you're doing, or I can do on the micro, trying to figure out how to scale that up to the macro, I guess. And
even if it's just in your neighborhood, just at your wherever church, football team, mentorship group, Boy Scouts, I don't know. Even though I think sometimes we want to bite off that big piece of cake or that big bite of the apple. Sometimes it's just that one kid that we can impact, or, your homegirl's son who ain't never been around no positive guy, mentoring, going to lunch and making sure you're inculcating him with some good, positive character principles. I'm going to read Ace Butterflies. The link has been dropped, guys. I'm going to drop it again. I'm going to also bring up President Obama's statement here momentarily, and what he and I want to still call her First Lady Michelle Obama stated. They put out a joint statement on Twitter. We're going to get to it just momentarily. But Ace Butterfly adds, Black people need to be reprogrammed every couple decades. There is a, quote, movement, civil rights movement, Million Man movement. And I do believe social media is that new fertile ground for creating different images, like, not being able to stay in the hood and say, I've never seen. No, you got it on your phone, hopefully, or some other way of viewing that there is something else out there. Might not know how to get there, might not know what to do when I get there, but at least that understanding that I can reach for something outside of what I know. I agree with you on that. As far as messaging in the way that we want to present ourselves. I think this is the most powerful thing about social media, good and bad. I saw this girl singing a Thug song today. That was so depressing when I saw it. It was so depressing. I don't know if it was I think it was like on hip hop, something I follow on Instagram. But I was like, why is this a song? But it was like me and my homegirls, basically we do ratchet stuff. Like they're hanging out the windows with their 40s. I'm like, people still doing this? Apparently. But yeah, so we have, it's a double-edged sword is what I was going to say.
I was going to bring that up because I'm like, it cuts deep both ways.
It's
and
both ways.
Last call for insight, we had this discussion, and he was saying the way that you begin to tackle a seemingly insurmountable task is you start with one. You start with that one child, that one. And then you get them sorted out, and then you go to the next one. And when you finish reading the chats, I'm curious to hear Brother First Gen's take on all this. Like with respect to the money being reallocated, like what they're doing with the next white flight. I was wondering, Brother First Gen, if you had any thoughts on how we could capture some of that money and maybe utilize it to help ourselves out, maybe through political means or something like that.
Sure. So what's been happening, and so just get background about myself. The reason I named myself First Gen Corporate, because I'm a first generation college student. Also first generation of my family to work in a corporate environment. I'm working in finance currently. So growing up, I was a child of after school programs. As I got older, those programs were gutted. Right? You starve the public with having the state governments, they start making excuses. Hey, we had this great recession. You starve these programs. But we know for a fact that after school programs keep kids off the streets. And a lot of low income students like myself, right? You had parents who was working. So those are additional couple of hours where your parents can take an extra shift or two bring more money in their pocket, and then pick up their kids at a later date. So when they gutted the after school programs, that's the start. And there's also like programs like the TRIO programs, a lot of small local programs, nonprofits that rely on federal funding. But what's happening over the years is that, again, they start starving the public. So they start cutting funding for these programs, right? I was a part of like a first generation program at my university, which I attended. Even the funding for that program is small in nature, but that program changed my life. Right? I was able to navigate college way easier, right? As a first generation student, I was able to get powerful connections and get internships, and even how I led to my career. But those programs, the funding is so low and it's chronically underfunded. But those programs are guaranteed to help students have higher success rates. So, I mean, it leads back to the question of the government is not properly funding these programs. And some people will say intentional. Now, the white flight, unfortunately, when you have Black individuals who try to start their own charter schools, right, it's a whole bunch of political maneuvering, a whole bunch of handshakes, right? And even the curriculum that you could be teaching, they can accuse you of probably being racist, right? If you want to have Black empowerment. So even the curriculum you're teaching in these charter schools that you're trying to start,
absolutely,
they're going to have the governors going to shut down your school and saying, hey, we can't teach the students this, right? And Florida is notorious for like these, they don't want to teach anything that makes people uncomfortable or teach anything that stokes division.
So-called critical race theory, anti-woke legislation. I'm still trying to see, are we going to be able to celebrate Black History Month? Like this, where are we on this?
But I will say in 2022, things are different now. The internet is a great invention that is heavily underutilized by people in our community. When I was growing up, I just had a small device. I used to go on Wikipedia every day and just read for hours. That's how I was able to gain knowledge in various topics. The internet is free, right? You can use it, for most, and it's subsidized by the federal government to some degree for individuals who have low income, and you can receive like Chromebooks and things of that nature. I would say people need to start using that even more instead of going on TikToks, and the YouTube and try to do Forex and crypto. Why don't you go read some free books from Project Gutenberg? Create your own free curriculum, right? But this requires you to have some discipline and to have initiative, which unfortunately a lot of people don't have, unless you're kind of like forcing them on a hamster wheel to do it. But I think that's one avenue which Black people, we can't take advantage of. There's so many free educational resources online. We just need someone to, consolidate this into accessible curriculum and give it to every Black child and tell them, hey, this is what you got to do to supplement your education, because they're not going to teach you everything that you need to know in order to be successful.
They want you to be a worker. Absolutely.
Yes, that's how my upbringing was.
9 to 5, not knocking it, because sometimes it's very lucrative, etc., etc. But a lot of people will never understand that school is not supposed to teach you how to make $1 million. School was never designed for that. It was basically allowing people to, just learn enough skills so that they can go work for someone else and the economy keeps going. But thank God for a pandemic that woke some people up. Thank God for the look around like, wait a minute, what have I been doing my life? Like this great awakening, the great recession, all these parts of us now that we have, the awareness, maybe we can go after some of those tools, the Khan Academies and some of these other ones, Masterclass and all these other ones that are very good. And it's free. A lot of it is free, sitting on the YouTube. So I agree with you. Ace adds, part of the issue is the candle is being burnt at both ends. We produce toxic content, our entertainers, for Black people to digest, and then we want social problems to help them with the destruction we created. Oh, Lord, help us. The truth hurts. I don't know if it's, I don't know. I got to leave that. Brother Umar still getting that school bill. Y'all so funny. Ms. AKA Lady says, First Gen, do you do anything with day trading? Random?
No. I stay away from those type of investments.
Yeah, I'm not, don't know much about it. So want to put a bow on some of the discussion here tonight. Former President Obama and First Lady, or I should say former, but I just say first, Michelle Obama, not going to read it. I issued a strong statement criticizing the draft Supreme Court opinion, knocking down Roe v. Wade decision, saying it would limit U.S. freedoms. This is the thing. We didn't get into talk about the freedom of choice, freedom for control of my body? Should the state be able to tell me what to do with my body? Today, millions of Americans, it began, woke up fearing that their essential freedoms under the Constitution were at risk. I think I put the actual statement in here. It's a little bit, I can't read it. But it was on Twitter. It's a 2-pager. I would have to drop everybody down for y'all to see it. But as far as personal freedoms, do you guys feel like this is an infringement on personal freedom, right to health care?
I would definitely say that this is the minority's way of controlling and governing in America. Because, I mean, you can go look at Pew Research Center did a study back in 2019, and they discovered that more than 60% of Americans believe that Roe v. Wade should not be overturned. This was back in 2019. So the majority of people, I mean, you look at some
I'm reading
recent,
it as much as 70%.
right, but I mean, and the numbers are out there, but basically we're not talking about 50% plus one. We're talking about the majority of folks are okay with or do not want what just happened. When you look at what happened with the sickness, right? The majority of people were like, hold on now. What do you mean we're going to shut the economy down? We
Right.
did anyway. You know what I mean? So when you look at, just creating all this money, I think people need to look at what's really going on here. It is the minority of people who are governing and controlling. And if they can't do it through the regular process, they're going to find the loopholes. They're going to do the people call them dirty tricks, whatever. They're going to do what they got to take and whatever it takes to get what they want. Right. And so we can't sit back and like that statement, oh, just woke up today and, oh, my goodness, we're a threat. This has been going on. And you can't say that you're shocked by the truck that hit you and you've been looking at that truck coming at you for 20 years. Like, it's right there. Get out the way or do something about it. And so that's my take on it. Is it people going to always?
I think you make a very valid point. I don't know why, but I think there are a lot of people who are in denial that this is happening. So I think when they said, I don't know if it was ABC News or whoever did a poll, how many people thought Roe v. Wade could be overturned, and it was under like 30% thought that it could. So the majority doesn't even think that it can be touched, even though in other polls the majority wanted to stay in place. There's a kind of false sense of security, or maybe oblivion or denial, whatever. I don't know what the emotion is, where a lot of people are in denial about how the government works, or as you're putting it, beyond the government, the deep state, the 1%, I don't know what to call it, is working to put things back in order for their benefit, I guess is what your point is. So there are people who are shocked by this. I really think there are a lot of people who are shocked by it. I hear you. DL could see the train coming from a mile away, but I hear you. But there are people that are like, what is happening? But go ahead, Savior Black.
I was going to touch on what DL said because I love that analogy of looking at this train as it's coming in, because the issue with that is that there's a lot of people that don't even know the train's there, or they don't see that truck coming at them, right? So there's a vast majority of us, and this goes back to that original point we were making, that ignorance is something that they drug us with. We sit there, it's like, just be a consumer, consume, give us your money, do all these other things. We're going to give you crappy education. You're not going to you're not going to really learn anything. You're going to learn, like what SuzetteSpeaks said, that you're going to learn how to be a good employee, or how to sit there and work within the system that we have that's here for you. We're not going to teach you that there's two tiers, because once you, like I say, if you were an entrepreneur, there's tax breaks that's available to you that's not available to the employee, right? So we're not going to teach you about any of those things. And they started at the young age, like I said, with the kids. So there's a lot of kids coming up, or a lot of young adults that came up, and you're saying, I see that's a train, and they've never been trained as to what that is that's coming out. They probably hear the noise, they hear the rumble, but they're not recognizing, they're ignorant as to exactly what it is that's coming out, and by design. And that's where I think that's our responsibility at this point, that we know what it is, that not just say, I see it, I'm going to jump out the way. And they're going like, why are you jumping? It's like, you should be jumping too, but then let me tell you, that's going to hurt you. But nobody, they're not looking at it from that perspective. And I agree with you. They need to know exactly what it is that's coming down that track, and they need to understand. I love that analogy you gave, because a lot of them, they're not looking at it from that perspective at all. So I think it's incumbent on us as people who are able to see it to tell somebody else, hey, look,
that would be that red pill that DL often mentions. I think y'all would be a good show. DL, get with Savior Black. I'm gonna introduce y'all to y'all would be a very good show because y'all operate in that deeper reality. I think Savior Black, from your worldview as far as how it affects Black people or the design for how it should affect Black people, and I think you are a little bit broader, but the same kind of thing. DL, I see this AK Ozzy saying best scripts, write the conclusion first and work back. I think we I don't know why we do that. I don't know why we ignore this is what I really want to say.
I mean, I know why we do.
Why
be
do
honest
we
with
ignore
you.
this?
We're too busy trying to survive. I mean, we're too busy. You're working 2-3 jobs. You got a separate job on the weekend, right? You're trying to figure out, okay, I can make this much, but if I make more, I'm gonna lose my health care. So I got to keep it under. I got to do some under the table work. Right, you're so busy.
I braid hair. I do this. I do 10 things.
You're trying to
cakes
figure
on
it
the
out.
weekend. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you got DL saying talking about, here, read this article. You know what I mean? You got Savior Black was like, here's a 1,000-page report. Read that. And it's like, no, just tell me what I need to think. And I get it. It's hard, right? It's really difficult. Right? It takes a lot of work and you're already tired. I get that. You're a single parent. We already know that's just how it works. You're a single parent, right? Either side of that, you're not going to be happy because, you got to juggle around your children. It is what it is. So I can see that it's not that they don't see it coming. They're too busy dealing with the bees and the hornets and the snakes and everything else. They just too busy to see it coming.
And
I'm fortunate enough.
You probably would think that is by design. Bury them in cost of living. Bury them in not being able to afford housing. Bury them in all these ways of just they have
bury
to
them in education debt. Let's bury them. Let's tell them, like you guys, you're attorneys. If you're a doctor, if you're an architect, that's different. But you're going to school for liberal arts and you're $100,000 upside down, right? You're gonna come out of there. What are you gonna do? You're gonna teach. Oh, how are you gonna pay that $100,000 back? Right? You're gonna come out. What are you gonna do? You're gonna manage targets. Nothing wrong with that. But you got $100,000 worth, and then that interest bill, you can't discharge it through the court system. So you're losing, and then you're gonna get angry. You look at someone like me, man. You was in the street hustling, like when we was kids, and I joined the army, but it was war. Yeah, but I survived, and I got a job with the government, and now I'm retired. Right now, I got money, I got investments, I got other streams of income. Right? Why you mad at me? You should, you know what I'm saying? Let's fix you. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's so easy for me to say these things because I can see it. I'm not in the trenches anymore. I can step and look around and see what's going on. And guess what? My 1% friends, they're like, good for you. Come over here. Why don't you meet this person? Shake this person's hand. Hey, why don't you run for this position? We'll back you. Right. But now they're like, I put you in there.
You're going to be owned by the machine.
You're going to be owned by the machine. But guess what? They gave me $10 million. What do you want me to say?
You gonna vote with the way they want you to vote. Then you're gonna be like, forget all these people that I've been thinking about talking about. Nope. No after school programs for you. Sorry. Let's go ahead and make this
Let me get my 10 million, then I'll come back.
A lot of people,
I'll circle back.
No, exactly. They're gonna be like, what? You didn't pay my bills though. So a lot of people end up like this that end up in politics. They come in and they want, I'm not gonna say there aren't fighters, but a lot of people want to make change. And then when it comes to the corporate interest, people talk about this campaign finance reform that is necessary because, you have all of these PACs now and, secret donor lists now. And a corporation is a human being when it comes to giving money and all the rules that DL talks about, like who would change a rule like this? Why would you even change a rule, right? To take power away from the everyday person and put so much into the corporate what should I say, backing. Why would you even change that? That wouldn't make sense to benefit the majority of Americans. But DL is clearly eyes wide open saying, well, duh.
Just two things: campaign finance reform, and term limits. That's all you need. That's it. That changes everything drastically.
Look at even Joe Biden. I was so offended when they were talking about Kamala. There's a book coming out about the Biden administration. I forget the name of it. And they were talking about, Kamala, like they were saying that when, of course, the president of the United States enters a room, his staff stands. But then they were saying when Kamala was coming in, nobody wasn't standing. So she was like, this is protocol. This is White House staff, being that most of Joe Biden's inner circle staff is, older, not necessarily older, but white guys who have been with him a long time, right? So they were trying to correct that, and Joe Biden was backing that up. But point being, some of the criticism was that, Kamala doesn't have the relationships that Joe Biden has on the Hill to help him the way he helped Barack Obama. Well, homeboy, you was there 30 years. She only 50. What are you talking about? And she doesn't have the foreign policy that he, homeboy, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, are we apples and oranging a person that has not sat, as you say, with respect to term limits in a seat for 3-4 decades? Like,
I mean, or is she
she's gonna
bought and
find
paid
her
for
own
it?
niche.
She came
but
out
I
of
don't think-
California.
Pardon
She
me?
came out of California. Is she bought and paid for it? Is she gonna do what they tell her to do? The fact that they're not respecting her means they know something.
Well, they told him to stand and they started standing up. But the point I'm making is, like, when you say, yeah, I don't know. Sorry. First Gen, do you have any comments?
I'm interested to hear the panel's thoughts on the intersection of business and law. More importantly, with the topic is even reproductive rights. Will states start to stipulate in insurance contracts that XYZ products cannot be sold within the state borders? Or even looking at the interstate commerce clause, will the Supreme Court allow the state to have more flexibility into dictating how businesses ran within their state? So you say you have a state like Florida.
As it relates to reproduction rights?
Yeah, so you say,
or niche markets that relate to it?
Niche markets, all in that realm. So if you're selling products that promote safety, or you're selling products, of that sort, you have a state like Florida that's saying, hey, you know what? Within the state of Florida, we ban you to transport these items. And Florida has a big shipping port. So if you can't transport these goods in the state in Florida and they validate that, or they fine you heavily, or even within the Florida state employees that have stipulations within an insurance contract that XYZ medicine is not covered. How does that work? And what will businesses do to combat this, if anything?
Hey, so you mind if I take this?
Go ahead, Saberback. I'm thinking.
I'm trying to remember that there's a case that deals with interstate commerce, and that's like supreme on everything else, right? So things coming into the state, or you're trying to ship those things out of the state. The Supreme Court has had multiple cases that has upheld that the Interstate Commerce Act, right? That is something that they uphold. Texas, the state I'm in right now, is trying to combat that in a different way, and that deals with is a two-way or a Second Amendment issue that they're trying to deal with right now with the ATF. It hasn't gone up to the Supreme Court yet. It has not been tried yet, but they're testing the waters, I guess, is what they're doing right now, and it deals with suppressors on firearms. And ATF heavily regulates suppressors on firearms, and this is. Forgive me. I'm trying to get.
We're following you. So firearm suppressors can be bought and sold, and it's being challenged.
It hasn't been challenged yet, but it can be bought and sold in Texas. If you're a Texas company that makes suppressors and sells only in Texas, they're saying that does not violate the that does not violate the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. Hasn't been and they're waiting for the ATF to challenge it for them. It hasn't been done yet. I'm waiting for the ATF because I know that they're looking at the legal grounds on them being able to do this at this point, because they know that if it goes across state lines, that there could be an issue. And I'm saying that to go back to what you were talking about with female contraceptives. Possibly the way to do it is what Texas is doing and seeing as a kind of force in the court's hand to see whether or not that challenge is going to be upheld or not. On saying, okay, we are going to make contraceptives for females in this state alone, and only for the females in this state, since this is something that the Supreme Court has already
to get around it. Okay.
And that way you can try and see it, because that's what Texas is trying to do right now with the suppressors. And like I said, I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I have no idea. What I'm saying is that's the workaround. They're trying to do that little end around play right now, and that might be, if that gets upheld, that might be the way to go with what you're talking.
Let me make sure I follow you, Saberback. So you're saying that, say, a company that is Merck or wherever, don't want to be sued, just saying, X company A has a plant there, but Merck is based in California. Merck opened a plant in Texas so that it could be a non-foreign, I forget the business term, but
I get what you're saying. It's not a foreign.
like a Texas-based company for the purposes of making they're in Texas and therefore does not violate interstate commerce by making it there. Is that what you're saying?
By making it here and only selling it here. That's because right now what they're doing with the suppressors, they don't want companies, like you said, foreign companies that aren't incorporated in Texas making the suppressors or whatever. So they're looking at companies that are native to Texas. I'm trying to think what that terminology.
Yeah, I forget that. What is the name of that? A foreign company versus a first gen. What are we trying to say?
I can't help you on this one.
Sorry, there's just a legal term. I can't think of it. Anyway, go ahead.
Their goal was foreign agent. It was
a company is foreign to that state if it's doing business outside of that state. But a Florida company in Florida has a certain name. I can't think of it. I'm drawing a blank.
So I'm thinking that might be for First Gen Corp. I say that might be the workaround, and I'm emphasizing might be because it hasn't been challenged yet, and we don't know where that's going. So that might be the workaround for the female contraceptive, saying, "Hey, because the Commerce Clause, that's like clad in stone. It has
that's how the United States survives.
Yeah, that's
play with the interstate commerce."
Yeah, and now this court might overturn commerce. I don't know. I doubt it because it's like if they do that one, that's huge.
Yeah, First Gen, I'm not sure because the way I was looking at it is like I know they're writing laws, and I don't want to say the wrong state, but that says even if you were, and I think it might have been just for sake of argument. I'm not saying this was a state like Missouri. Missouri's law, as it relates to termination, stated that you don't have to be a citizen of Missouri. For example, not saying it is right now the law in Missouri, but for example, just for argument's sake, if you passed through and stayed at a motel there and conceived in Missouri, but went back to where you are from, that as long as conception was in their state, they could prosecute you if you were to get a termination somewhere else. So I know that's not commerce, but I was thinking, gosh, if that's how the laws are being written, if they could prove, I don't know how they would prove it, but if they could prove you was on vacation and the conception started here, although you live somewhere else, there are states, just for argument's sake, that are writing laws that would apply to even those who don't seek within their borders the termination. So I'm not sure that's adjacent to the Commerce Clause, I'm sure. But I'm just thinking about that. I'm like, wow, they're writing it to be very encompassing. So I'd be interested to see. I'm not 100% sure how the Commerce side would work. Commerce Clause side would work. Were you going to ask DL?
I was going to say to, brother First Gens, he's brilliant. If I had a think tank, I would have to have that brother in there.
Yeah.
Because you want those people who are listening and thinking of some good questions. That was an excellent question because I'm thinking if the state wanted to play hardcore, right? Could a state like Texas, hypothetically, a citizen of Texas goes to California to exercise the option, comes back. Could the state of Texas decide that they're going to sue California for allowing that option to one of their citizens? Is that something that could happen? I mean, because you start thinking that what are the extremes? Like, remember, getting rid of Roe v. Wade was an extreme. It was a long shot. It couldn't happen, but it just did. So what could something that we consider extreme today actually maybe become some sort of case law in 2 months? Let's say in 8 months.
All right, from the hypothetical, go ahead, Xavier. I was just saying from the hypothetical you pose, it wouldn't be against the state itself. States have their own sovereignty, but it might be against that individual. It might be against that provider in that other state. Like, I'm not sure.
So a parent of an individual who exercised that option, who was a citizen of that state, couldn't go after the state in which the procedure was performed. Okay.
Maybe the individuals involved, depending on where they were residents of. There's a lot of
that in there. Okay.
Which law would control depends on where, like the residency, where the act occurred, there's a lot. I don't know whose state would control the law in that hypothetical, but I'm just saying states are autonomous. They're sovereign.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So once you leave one state, you go to another, you fall under their laws.
Not necessarily. That's what I'm saying. So if you're a resident of that state, it just depends on how these individual laws are written. That's why I don't want to give a blanket statement. But wherever you are a resident, usually, typically, that may apply. The local law would apply. However, if you sought services in another state, that might actually be appealable up to the Supremes.
Mm-hmm.
So that I don't know if that's resolved.
Sounds like tons of gray. Tons of gray.
Yeah, no, because again, you would say, okay, I live in Florida. I had to drive to Arizona, because you have certain laws, like, correct me if I'm wrong, this is a Texas law. The Texas law, which I read so much about, allows people to report one another.
Yes.
It allows someone to report an individual who has gotten a termination illegally and sue them, like personally sue
Correct.
that person.
Correct. So it's like if I seen that you and DL, or you got into the car with DL, and DL was an Uber driver and he drove you to Planned Parenthood, and he dropped and he dropped you off at Planned Parenthood in Texas, and I see that, I can now come back to DL and I can sue DL for dropping you off to get a pregnancy termination there at the plant. That's how that law is working.
That's how Texas law, the way it's written, is works.
I say, so I can't sue but I can directly sue DL for that planned termination, even though
being a part of carrying out of the legal act.
Yeah,
that's the way they wrote it.
Yeah, for facilitating you getting it. That's the way the law's written.
And he doesn't have to be related to you. He just have to have knowledge of you.
And have knowledge that that's what he was taking you to go do. So if you're an Uber driver or a Lyft driver and you're dropping people off at Planned Parenthood, now you're subject to litigation, and it's a civil thing because they're suing you for damages, for money, right? So,
and that ties back to that bottom, the have-nots. I'm just trying to make money. Next thing you know, I'm getting served, right? And I got to go. And I have, can't afford an attorney. I try to represent myself or whatever.
Bro. Or not jail. It's civil penalty. You can be sued financially, isn't it? It's not a
exactly right.
Criminal penalty. It's me suing you individually.
So you're going for damages is the way that when you're talking in law, it's money. So it's saying, hey, I can't take you. You're not going to go to jail for this. We're not impacting your liberty or your life. The only thing we're doing, you're getting sued for money. You sat there, you did this, and this is you can get sued for taking this individual over here to Planned Parenthood.
Now, excuse me, Savior Black. Now, has that law been challenged?
I do not.
It has not been appealed yet?
I think it has. I have to check on that. That's
what I'm wondering. If as of today, I don't know that, because I was like, did I read that? Why do I have Texas on my mind? But yeah, it's very interesting. And then I had a friend today, as I kind of last call for the panel. I have a friend today saying, well, why don't the Democrats or the left-leaning people just not appeal anything right now? She's like, y'all need to get it together and stop appealing anything so that it doesn't have an opportunity to be ruled on by a conservative court. I was like, that's not going to happen. I know that's not.
I guess this is educating people on how the court system actually works. Even if you sat there and you did you went through your case and let's say your case ended and you appeal today, that's not coming up for years a lot of times. And then getting it from and if the Supreme Court were to grant certiorari, that's not going to be for another few years. So the cases that are actually being heard now are cases that were filed years ago that are finally getting up to the Supreme Court now. So it's not like
they pick and choose what they take. They don't not necessarily take everybody's case either. They don't feel like ruling on something. They're like, nope, send it back down to the states. Sunbreeze, thank you. This is very interesting. Says Lyft also said it will donate $1 million to Planned Parenthood to help ensure transportation is never a barrier. Wow. To healthcare services. And then had initially stated the rideshare company has created a driver legal defense fund that will cover all legal fees for a driver sued under the Texas law while using its platform. Wow.
That's crazy.
This is talk about that. Gentlemen, I'm going to allow you to give final thoughts. There's so much more that we can uncover. We might do a part 2 once the actual, I don't know, they're going to let nobody else leak nothing else, but maybe there'll be another development between now and the final verdict, the final holding, the final law. So do you guys think this is done for? you think Roe v. Wade is overturned in for all intents and purposes, even though this was a draft legislation and it's still legal right now as of today? But what do you guys think? Is it done?
I think that you're going to have two, like when you're talking about the two different Americas, what you're going to have is Roe v. Wade is going to go away if the draft actually holds, and I'm speaking to it as if this draft is going to be good law going forward. If Roe is going to overturn Roe, and you're going to have probably 25 states that are 25 to probably even 26 states that are going to have trigger laws that are going to immediately get rid of pregnancy termination. I was trying to remember the word.
No, thank you for being so careful.
So they're gonna have like 25 states that'll have laws against pregnancy termination, and then you'll have probably 25 states pregnancy termination will be okay. And similar to right now, where you have a lot of the laws for recreational use of certain substances, and people travel to go to those locations, because me being in Texas, being one of the places that doesn't have that recreational law for those substances, and a lot of times people will travel to those other locations. I think that you're going to have the same thing. There's going to be a travel destination type deal for people to go have services for pregnancy terminations is what you're going to start seeing. And there's going to be states that are probably start promoting it the same way that states who have recreational use for those substances do their promotion for it. I think that that's what you're going to start having. There's going to be
two Americas when it comes to reproductive rights. DL, since we're talking about the 1% as you have characterized them, what do they get out of this?
Well, my opinion on that is they all they're simply doing is trying to secure their lineage and secure their finances and make things easier for them to do what they want to do. So what do they get out of this? They get a permanent working class. You feel me? Like, I mean, someone's got to work in my factory and make my widgets, right? I'm not going to do it, at least until I can get my automation online, and then I can get rid of everybody, right? Until then, someone's got to work at my CVS, at my Walmart. Someone's got to work at my McDonald's. You know what I mean? Someone's got to work at you enter the name of the business. And it's not as if they're being malicious. They're not bad people, in my opinion. They're simply doing what's best for them, right? And the biggest thing is how they move their money around. You know what I mean? Like when you look at what was going on with Wall Street, making money hand over fist, you look at what went on with the PPP loans and all that money that Congress had authorized. Where did most of that money go? Congress can't even tell you. They're trying to figure it out now. Money just got blasted out to people. You go back all the way to Bush when they was going back to lowering taxes and giving people those rebates. Who got the biggest tax rebates? It was already people who were, wealthy. It's like, oh, we're going to give you a 10% reduction in whatever. We're going to send that money to you. 10% to the average person is nothing, but you're getting people getting millions and millions of dollars back. And all that money, to Brother First Gen's point, was funding all of these different initiatives that were helping people in the bottom tier work their way up. So they didn't need to work in your widget factory. They didn't need to work in your burger joint. They didn't need to be stocking the shelves at Walmart. And then working these jobs, by the way, that are non-union. Right. So we've decimated the unions. People who need unions most are the people who are anti-union. It blows my mind. So how does this is the game that the 1% is playing. This is the game that they have yachts are playing. They're going to need somebody to drive that yacht. They're going to need somebody to clean that yacht. They're going to need somebody, to be on board to help keep the marble clean on those yachts. I don't know if y'all been on any yachts. I went to the Miami Boat Show recently. I'm here to tell you, $30 million don't even buy you a lot of boat right now. That blows my mind. People were signing up for $30 million boats right there on the spot. I'll take that one. So again, they're not the evil doers.
You know how much maintenance it is to own a boat?
It's normally a percentage. Same thing with the airplane. If you buy an airplane, whatever you spend on that airplane, you're going to spend about 20% annually to maintain it. Right. And I know people who own airplanes that are, upwards of $60 million, $75 million. And they spend 20% annually just maintaining the airplane.
Yeah.
Have yachts got a lot of stuff they need to do, and they need people to do these things for them. So that's what I believe the situation is. And anything that has to do with finance, anything that has to do with their tax money, anything that does away with their tax breaks. I mean, look at the former president. What did he tell Hillary Clinton? I don't pay my taxes because I'm smart. You dig? So they're not looking at it as an evil thing. They're just trying to keep their bread. I can't say I'm mad at them, but at the same time, there's nothing patriotic about what they're doing because they know they're hurting people. And more importantly, they know they're hurting America, but they don't care because they got an exit strategy. Things get bad. Uncle Sam's going to Colombia. I already got it worked out. Right? Things get bad. I know I'm going. And if I got an exit plan, I know the have yachts got all kind of exit strategies.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm gonna thank you for being on today. I appreciate always your insight, your realistic in your, I would say in your face, but just unbridled truth is, I guess, the best way to put it when it comes to life and why our society is moving the way it moves. First, Jen, do you want to give final comments before I drop you and DL down?
Yes. Thank you, Suzette, for allowing me to be on your platform. Thank you, everyone on the panel, for just hearing my entertaining my 2 cents on this very serious issue that's ongoing. And shout out to everyone on the panel tonight. We had a really good discussion. I like to call it a working discussion. A gathering of intellects discussing the possible futures or iterations of America. Some which are hopeful and some not so hopeful. So hopefully the people in the audience can gather a couple of things and learn more about what's really going on in the world. Like DL Saint have said, the have yachts and the have nots. People need to be educated on that, and that's all I have to say.
It's real. Thank you, gentlemen. Savior Black, hold on for your last word. I appreciate you. DL Saint, check out his channel. Go subscribe. What is the name of it? The Truth Podcast?
For DL Saint, I really want to know podcast.
I really want to know.
I do really want to know. We talk about a little bit of everything on there. We're going to be talking about China, what China's doing in the Solomon Islands right now. I don't think anybody's paying attention. My buddy that I serve with, he's talking about what China is doing in the Solomon Islands and how Australia and New Zealand are really nervous. Again, all this, it's all smoke and mirrors.
It's all coming at us. We got Ukraine. We got this.
But it's all smoke and mirrors. At the end of the day, interest rates are going up. People can't afford to buy homes. And as we know, most Americans gather their wealth, their generational wealth through home ownership. The middle class
was built through home ownership. And now
the middle class doesn't exist anymore. So I'm going to get my yacht. I'm going to park it in Suzette's neighborhood because she's down there living a good life in Miami.
I be telling people, don't buy no boat. I don't understand because it's so much money to maintain. I'd rather just rent it for the weekend or something.
Absolutely. But think about it though. If I owe $100 million in taxes, I could buy a boat.
Find ways, exactly. So we need to find friends like DL, y'all, and go hang out on the weekend and hang out with the have yachts at the Miami Boat Show and go do what we came to do. Anyway, thank you, DL. Thank you, First Gen Corp. Always a pleasure having you guys up here.
Peace to everybody on the channel.
Any and every time. I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. All right, guys. See you soon. Thank you. Bye, DL. And then there were two. Thank you, Uncle Stu, on the super chat. Miss AKA Lady says, get the bag, y'all. It's one of those moments where you feel like, China be everywhere. China is building everywhere. But yes, China, by the time you blink, they got something over there and something over here. They are using that economic prowess while we're using military. We're here trying to be the world police while they're gently saying, oh, you want more roads? In Africa, okay, you want to different countries, you want more roads? We'll give you infrastructure. Just give us all of your precious metals that we need for all of our, fill in the blank, any type of, well, we can't even go there. That's a whole nother discussion. Now be watching some of these news programs and documentaries like, oh my God, China's getting all the precious metals in Africa. What are we doing? Like, I don't know. Yes. Shout out to Theo with the long name. The more you know, or the really want to know podcast. Uncle Stu Wagwan. Uncle Stu will be on next month. Sorry to hear again about the passing of your dad. Much love to you, Uncle Stu, but always giving us quality content, great discussions, a little bit of manosphere, a little bit outside, a little bit of everything. Go check out Uncle Stu, the old man on the block. No comment, just love. Thank you for always supporting Uncle Stu, and I can't wait next month to have you on. I have a couple of shows lined up. K Business Podcast will be here Thursday. K Business, I got a good lineup this next 2 weeks. I'm just gonna say that out loud, including tonight. Savior Black. I gotta look at my phone because I don't really remember everybody. A lot on my mind. K Business Podcast. And then Monday, Boss Attorney Bree, Courtney Michelle next Tuesday. Oh, y'all thought Intentional Millionaire. What? Yeah, I have a good lineup on deck. I thought I was gonna be focusing more on like mental health because it's mental health awareness, but the people just coming. So we're gonna go in the direction they have. So shout out to Intentional Millionaire, Boss Attorney Bree, Courtney Michelle, everybody who's coming through K Business Podcast this Thursday at 7. Appreciate everyone who is collabing, and I will have more. But those are the ones who are set. I think Red Pill Awareness. I was trying to get him to come through. He said yes. He has a birthday weekend, of course, coming up. So you got to let me know when he's coming. Who else? I feel like I had a couple more, but I don't have them on my phone yet. But we trying to bring, like I say, light to people who have, good, solid info, and who can provide a valuable exchange. So I'm excited for folks like Savior Black on this space. So y'all go show some love. Please do go support Savior Black and go look at his channel. It's deep Black thought. I'll put it like that. I'd be like, God, I need to get my Black history. Like I'll be watching like, this is deep. Did I know that? Like you dropping knowledge, bro, but it's a passion. So final thoughts. He has done such a wonderful job reading 100 pages of an opinion today. I asked him, he emailed me yesterday, and then this came out, and I'm like, this morning, I was like,
Yeah.
Roe v. Wade.
Like, I'm now. You asked.
Sure. And I'm like, for a brother to just step in like that, step into the ring for something, I didn't even realize how extensive this thing was, the draft opinion was, until I looked at it. I was like, oh, snap, I got to know something about this. And watching the news and reading different articles and different cases, it's a lot. You just want to try to be able to know, a little bit about a lot of things when we prepare. So for you to take the time to do that, brother, means so much. And you've definitely enlightened us and definitely brought different perspectives and that legal perspective for us here tonight. So what are your final thoughts? Will Roe go? Or where do you think, what is the significance of this? Mm-hmm.
I think definitely Roe is going to go. If I say, and I'm going under the assumption that the draft is going to be close to what the final is going to be. Maybe there might be some tweaks, but it looks definitively. I know Robert says that he didn't want it to go. He wants to roll it back, but I think Roe's getting ready to go. And if Roe does go, I think that one of the things that we talked about, you're going to have that division where you're going to have the two different types of America or two different types of states, some where pregnancy termination is legal and some where pregnancy termination is illegal. So I think that the day that it happens, so whether that they look at it and they say, oh, okay, well, it's already been leaked now, we'll just drop it now and we'll get ahead of it. Or if they wait the 2 months, which I don't know if I would wait the 2 months at this point, if it's close to that, because even, like I say, if you're right wing, then let's let the news cycle catch it. But if that's the case and it gets out there and it's done, then that's going to happen there. But for the community itself, I think that it's going to either spur us to start making sure that not just better decisions are made, but that brothers are actually starting to be in the household more, because like one of the things that DL mentioned, there's no longer hey, I wish I had a choice. Neither of us have choices now. We're going to.
Oh, this is about I'm thinking about the kids.
Yeah.
When I say under 18, I think about them a lot. Trigger laws. Thank you. Shout out to Chuck. Just text me. I see him watching. He said, Sue, these are the 13 states in the U.S. that have the so-called, according to this, trigger laws, which would effectively ban termination of pregnancies almost immediately after Roe v. Wade is overturned. They include, thanks, Chuck, for this list. Do your own research. Again, this is not definitive. This is what I've been sent on the fly, so I haven't vetted. Arkansas, Idaho, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Oklahoma, North Dakota, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Wyoming. Florida's not on there. That's the one thing we at least we didn't make the list, so we don't have it. I didn't think we did have the so-called trigger law. And again, in all seriousness, this is so serious, y'all. It immediately becomes darn near illegal, if not totally illegal in these states if this thing is overturned. So automatically the populations of these states will be impacted in totality, where they have to travel, which takes money, which takes time off, which takes a lot of stuff. So do your research, look at your state. But thank you, Chuck, for sending this list as far as we were talking about. Thank you. The trigger laws and what possibly this may lead to. It's very real. Yes, Miss AKA Lady, we take a very serious subject sometimes and have to smile at it. She said, shout out to Florida for not tripping. No, but we tripping on a lot of other stuff. Florida has been so busy in these special sessions we've had. We not our regular lawmaking session, Savior Black, is not long enough. They come back for 2 days here. The governor here can call you back. And in those 2 or 3 days, they throw out a lot of legislation that he signs. It is for people who don't believe in big government. It's certain issues I think are needed. Like we have a special session coming up at the end of April about insurance laws. Like Florida has big insurance scammers. Not only that, but very high insurance costs because we're a hurricane state and all this. But we also have a very strong trial lawyer bar. So they were saying, like, I forget what kind of property insurance claims, like 80% of those are filed in Florida. It was some crazy stuff that I was reading. I was like, dang, this does have to be looked at. But anyway, sidebar. But yes, Savior Black, y'all, please check him out. So definitely, yes, legal issues must be discussed. Thank you, RM, for the reminder. One-on-one, we are not intending anything discussed here tonight to have been construed as legal advice. It is not for rendering any type of specific legal advice to anybody watching. It is an informational and entertainment purposes only show. So if you have a legal issue, please seek out an attorney individually so they can make a specific assessment of your legal issue. That's not what we're doing here, guys. So even though this was a heavy law discussion, it was just that for discussion purposes and informational purposes only. Discretion is advised. Thank you. Go ahead, Savior Black.
I was gonna say, so making light of a serious situation. Normally in the past, guys would sit there and keep like $500 just so they had that money for the termination. Right. So now you have to keep your termination pregnancy money and airfare.
I'm about to say they're gonna have to take plane fare, hotel. Lord, I hate to. It's nothing to smile about. You're not gonna get me in trouble, Savior Black. It's so serious. What used to be a ride up the street is now, for many people, like I said, those who have to miss work, those who have kids already, those who have all kinds of other obligations, the population is going to change. It's going to shift again. I don't know. It's going to shift again, depending on what state you are and if you have the money to travel. That your point is well taken, but whether you have the money to travel will make a lot of difference because our 1%, they always going to get access, or they'll be on a plane. It's not that they don't get it. They might not get it in the U.S. They'll be up in Canada. They'll be down south in South America. But people have always wanted to do this. This is another thing, and the history behind it as if it was never done. I've been talking to a lot of old folks that talk about knowing people that have died trying to do this. Like that was common. So people, we might have to do a part 2. Savior Black in the building, helping us with a lot of heavy lifting today. Appreciate y'all. RM, one more time, drop his channel in the chat. She's been doing a great job. Yes, Savior Black. Follow him on Insta. Follow him on Twitter. But most importantly, follow him on YouTube. Go ahead and hit the like button of this episode. If you can, afterwards, comment below the episode after we're done. It helps us with the algorithm. Like, comment, and share. Appreciate all of y'all for being here. Great episode, says DL. Well, you help make it great. Thank you for always, supporting. And I appreciate each and every one of y'all. As DL says, good night. And I'll see you Thursday with K Business Podcast. Y'all have a great evening. Thank you for your support. All my super chatters. Shout out to Thane, Mithra, and DL Ty for sponsoring tonight. Appreciate y'all. All right. Big up yourselves, everybody. Appreciate you watching. I hope you got some value from tonight's conversation. Have a great night. See you Thursday. Take care. Thank you, Savior Black. Thank you so much.